Good morning. It is a Monday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. I am Glenn. That's not Griffin today. That's Grant DeVito. We'll be in for Griffin this week. He's out gallivanting around doing God knows what. We got a lot to do on a Monday edition of the program. Obviously, we will discuss the Orioles dropping 2 out of 3 to the Padres. We were able to sneak in some thoughts on the Austin Hayes trade on Friday. But, of course, the Zach Eflin deal happened after that. Talk a little bit more about that and what the Orioles might still do before 6 p.m. tomorrow. John Morosi continuing to churn out some hot Tarek Skubal rumors. You guys got any of them Tarek Skubal rumors? John Morosi does. And as you would expect around the trade deadline, it's like all of everything. Like, it might be that the Orioles are willing to go after Tarek Skubal, but it also might be, as like Rock Tabacco reported this morning, they're just not willing to part way with any of their top prospects. Well, if that's the case, then they're obviously not getting Tarek Skubal. That's just, it's not going to happen. So, way more unknown, way more confusion at the moment than we have answers, but we will continue to discuss it throughout the course of the day today. Also today, we will catch up with Brian Anderson, Rays color analyst. He's going to tell us all about the new Orioles pitcher who is starting today. That's Zach Eflin, who will have Game 1 of the doubleheader, and then the Orioles will call up Cade Povich to start Game 2. He'll just be the 27th man on the roster, so they don't actually have to call him up. It's like just a one-day thing. He gets a momentary return to the rotation. I don't know how long Albert Suarez is for the rotation. I think some of that depends on what it is they're about to do. We'll see. Also, coming up today, we're going to be checking in just a few minutes, in fact, as he just messaged me. He's over in Paris. My buddy Jason Newton is covering the Olympics from WBAL TV, and he will be buzzing in to tell us what it is that he's seeing. I was glued, of course, to Rafael Nadal, Novak Djokovic this morning. Not that I'm surprised by the result. Rafael Nadal, it's the end, and you respect him, trying to make one more run. We'll see if maybe he and Carlos Alcaraz can't hang in doubles, but Novak Djokovic takes care of him in straight sets over in Paris. We'll talk more about the other Olympics topics. So, Jason Newton will check in with us. We'll talk some Ravens. Former NFL general manager Jeff Diamond, now of the 33rd team, is going to join us. And Jeremy Conn will join us as he does every Monday. Also, since it's Monday, we will go 3 up and 3 down today, so we need you to get your responses in at Glenn Clark Radio or Facebook.com/Glenn Clark Radio. Which 3 Ravens are most deserving of praise? Which 3 Which 3 Orioles are most deserving of praise? Which 3 Orioles are most deserving of scorn for the past week? A week in which they went 2 and 4. Not great. Not great. No way around that. But there were some good performances, and obviously there are some others on the other side. So rank them for me. Get them over to me at Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter or Facebook, and someone will win a $50 gift card to the Costas Inn that you could put towards the Crab Tower. Or I shared a picture on Twitter today of the BLT tea, which is a BLT with tuna as well. It looks unbelievable. You can use that at the Costas Inn if you win and you participate in 3 up and 3 down. Today's show is brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. It's the best place to watch all of the big events, including everything that's going on in Paris right now. Plus, Live Casino Rewards members have the opportunity to earn discounts on cash and credit purchases at the casino. Join the Live Casino Rewards Club online or in person at Live today. See complete details at livecasinohotel.com. I don't want to go too far with anything. Just a couple of quick notes, and then we'll get into more of the meat of the show. I want to thank everybody. A lot of well wishes, a lot of kind offers. Simon Habdamariam sent us pizza, and other people that offered. My son got out of the hospital yesterday. So it was a long, what would that have been, 8 days? 8 days. But he's out. He's feeling good. We went for a walk yesterday after we watched the Orioles game. Then we actually even he tried to swing the baseball bat a little bit. That he was still a little bit weak from the various IVs and just a week sitting in a hospital bed. But he did try to be active a little bit yesterday, and he looks good. He sounds good. He feels good. We're not entirely out of the woods yet. There's still some tests that we got to do this coming week, but for right now, we're about as comfortable as we possibly can be, and we are very appreciative of all of the kindness that everyone showed. My son has a lot of requests for things that I'm dealing with right now. As I shared on social media, I might have made a few mistakes where I might have promised a few things when he needed the uplifting when he first got in the hospital. I might have promised hey, dude, we'll go to an Orioles game when you get out. And then he was like, how about one on the road? I'm like, all right, sure. Can we have mozzarella sticks for dinner? Yeah, buddy. I think I might have gone a little. I think I definitely promised him a hydration station for the house. That happened. So some checks that might be coming due in the coming days after I told him if we get out, we could do a bunch of different things. But thank you all for your kindness. Really appreciate it. And hopefully a little bit more normalcy in the Clark family's life moving forward. All right, let's head over. Let's go overseas. Of course, the Olympics are underway, and our guest, who I care about most because he is a certified softie for Show Your Soft Side, but on top of that, he's over in Paris covering the Olympics for WBAL TV. He is Jason Newton, and he is with us this morning here on GCR. Jason, I guess I should say good afternoon. Thank you for taking the time for us.
Hey, man, I love it. And you're right. Good afternoon, 4:05, I think, ish. And you mentioned soft side. French folks, at least where we're staying, I don't see as many dogs being walked as I expected to. I thought there was a beautiful, beautiful lab on our street that I see in the mornings, man. But yes, here in Paris, I'm staring at the Eiffel Tower as we speak.
That's cool.
This is amazing. It's still, we've been here for over a week. It's still every morning. I'm like, I cannot believe I'm waking up in Paris.
That's really cool, man. That is really cool. Jason, take me through when you get an Olympics assignment. Are you there trying to give specific local coverage, like local athletes, or are you there more like I want to give a taste of this global event in general, the biggest events, the biggest things happening? That's what I want to pass back to folks in Baltimore.
Well, that's the tricky part for us. So I work for Hearst, which owns WBAL, but we also own we have about 27 different newsrooms. So we can't be hyper local because we're feeding the beast for everybody. So the trick for the three correspondents are here. Yeah, we are focused on if let's say you have a station in Nebraska, you could say, hey, Jason, we need you to pick up a swimmer named blah blah blah. So it'll be my job to sort of track that person down, see how they're doing, or if they have family members, that kind of thing. But then we also try to do a broader story so that even if you don't have an athlete, you can get a feel of what's going on. So I know I turned a story about athletes' mental health not that long ago. I did one 2 days ago about the women's rugby team and what inspires them. And they said they all have a woman in their life that means something special to them. So we did something with that. So it's a little bit of both, but we lean on something a little more broad.
Yo, that women's rugby team, they are nuts, man.
They're no joke. They're playing right now in France. France gave them all they had today. I don't think they won. I didn't get to see the final just now, but they are tough, man. Mentally strong, and they are together. They are one voice. It is incredible. I was at their press conference in the front row, and I wanted to put on some pads or something and go.
So what all have you been able to check out so far? Just what, which venues, which sports, what all have you been able to see?
So far, I haven't been in to see a sport in action because when we shoot video, we aren't able because of those restrictions. Yeah, you can't do it all. But we've been by beach volleyball, which we can see from our perch. Today, we weren't far from. Actually, I was at the fencing venue today as well. So we have some spaced out days off, and I have one that's coming up at the end of the week. So I'm going to spend that day just as an Olympic tourist.
That's cool.
Seeing things. But as far as doing for TV, the backdrops that we've been able to be at are so historic and so cool. From the Eiffel Tower, I'm at the Trocadero right now, which is down the street from there. It's just, Arc de Triomphe, Champs-Élysées, you name it, we have seen it all, and it is, again, you wake up and you're like, this can't be real. This can't be, I should be in like Woodlawn somewhere, but no, here I am in Paris.
He's Jason Newton from WBAL, and he is covering the Olympics in Paris. He's with us here on GCR. Jason, were you out in the rain on Friday during the ceremony?
Was I ever? So we had shot, stories and done our work all throughout the day, and I was going to watch it in my room, and I thought, I'm in Paris, and the opening ceremonies are down the street. There's no way I'm staying here. So I went down, sort of talked my way down to the edge of the river, and it poured for a little while, but no one moved, man. No one moved. People had raincoats, but even some didn't, and they just sat in the rain. There's a civic pride here that is just through the roof, and then add on a global event. And everyone wanted to be a part of it. And it was chills. It was chills watching those boats go through and seeing these amateur athletes, in many cases, be on the biggest stage they've ever been on, that they've been training for years for. And now this is their moment. You could feel it. You could just feel it from them on the boat.
It's really funny because I feel like I will acknowledge to you, Jason, I get jaded, right? There's a little bit of, okay, come on, all right, sure, you're going to shove this down. But I am actually a nerdy Olympics fan. Like, I am all in. It's bad. It's bad for me because I'm such a tennis is my sport. And so, like, I'm almost glued to the tennis and forgetting, like, oh, right, I also wanted to watch the rugby. I wanted to watch can we make the Olympics 4 weeks so I can watch more of these things and not have to choose during the day? But I get back to it every time. And then seeing, like, the most famous athletes in the world who are, like LeBron James is a billionaire. He has no need to do any of these things, but to still be out there on the boat in the rain, soaking it up, everyone coming and taking pictures with him. I'm like, wow, like that is quite the statement about this.
There's something that I feel like in this setting that humanizes everyone involved.
Yeah.
I feel like it humanizes the athletes. It humanizes the media folks that are here. I think because everyone here is like you strip away all of, the BS that we deal with every day in our daily lives. I couldn't tell you a Baltimore headline right now, or I couldn't tell you what, if they picked the trash up the other day at my place. You know what I mean? I think that we are all just so focused on all these athletes. There's nothing cooler, man, than getting on the subway and hearing 5 different languages.
Yeah.
And being intrigued by it, not being intimidated by it or turned off by it, but really guessing what it is. Or a young kid coming to you and sees that you're wearing a NBC logo in your backpack. And, hey, do you have a pen with your logo on it that I can keep?
Wow.
It's just, there's just something changes during this season. And if the world could stay like this, like 365, dude, we would have it right.
Man, that's cool. That's a really, really cool vibe. All right, so when you do get the day off, what's on the priority list for you? Like, what's the stuff that you definitely want to see?
Like, I want to do things that I do enjoy. So I do want to either catch basketball. I do want to catch track and field. But I definitely want to do something that I would never think of. Like, go to see dressage and see the horses. You know what I mean? Like, there's something about, the sports that you don't know the rules to that you could sit and watch and be like, oh, so this is, this is how it goes. I want to do a little bit of what I know and a little bit of what I've never seen before.
I remember every Olympics, like, I love handball. I have no idea what any of the rules are, but it just looks awesome. Like, it's the coolest thing. I don't know why the Americans are terrible at it, but like, it's the coolest sport there is.
It seems like, but doesn't it seem like such an everyman game? Like, everybody should be able to play.
Dude, I don't know if you remember, the Ravens had a fullback named Kyle Juszczyk a few years ago.
Yeah.
And so Kyle was watching handball that summer and like tweeting about how he was certain that he could play handball in the Olympics. And I went over to practice one day, like during training camp, and I wanted to do a story about it. And I was like, where does this hubris come from? Like, there's no way you can genuinely believe that you could just pick up this sport. And I reached out to some American handball athletes, and they were like, please tell him to get in touch with him. We desperately want him to come play handball because, like, we think that his skill set could actually translate to playing this sport. And I was like, wow,
really?
All right, well, that maybe we could solve this problem. Let NFL players play handball in the offseason, and perhaps the U.S. would have a shot. Maybe that would be the thing. Dude, you mentioned the beach volleyball. I don't remember who. I think one of the Yahoo writers that's there said it might be a better visual than the Rose Bowl. Like, it's unreal.
Incredible.
Yeah.
It is incredible. And then when you do it at night, we went to a practice. One of our guys went to a practice one night and brought the video back. It's so spectacular because the Eiffel Tower then is doing that sparkly thing it does at night. So you have that behind you. You have like the lights of the stadium, and it's really like cozy. So you're sort of on top of each other. And it's incredible, man. And when I was doing live shots on Sunday, so if you imagine, there's the stadium for beach volleyball, there's the Eiffel Tower, there's a river, and then I'm 4 feet up, and 4 stories up, and I could still hear the cheering up there. Like that's how loud it got. I knew every point from where I was standing. It's just, I don't know, they just do it right, man.
That's cool, man. I know, obviously, there's some kindred spirits here because, of course, in Baltimore, we just made it so that like you can swim in the harbor. Is there any chance that we see you take a dip in the Seine before you leave Paris, Jason?
There is one guarantee, Glenn, that I can make to you right now. That ain't happening.
Sounds like you're out on taking a dip in the harbor.
I'll send you all
too.
the pictures you want.
I know that has been a bit of an issue. Surrounding.
Well, they're working on it. They had to cancel one of the practices of triathlon the other day, but it came after a huge rain that we had, and so they're hoping that the heat and the sun being, because it's a beautiful day today, it's not a cloud in the sky. They're hoping that a day or two like this will help to sort of eradicate some of that issue that they're dealing with. But I mean, whatever. Like it's, as I said to everyone, people are like, are you having a good time? And I'm like, you can't have a bad time in Paris at the Olympics. And I think the swimmers probably think the same thing too. I think they believe that enough precautions have been taken for their health, and they have a backup. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's definitely a talker right now.
All right. So best thing you've ate so far is what?
Ooh, I had a veal dinner last night, man, and it was absolutely melt in your mouth. Incredible. It was. Yeah, that was probably my favorite so far.
My wife and I went to Paris like a decade ago, and I remembered first of all, I was blown away that like you went to dinner at 10:00. Like that was the way that it worked.
Yeah.
I couldn't get around that. But the other thing too is this was how I was the ugly American. I always thought that like steak and frites was sort of like a kitschy. Like they really do. You go get a steak, they are serving you French fries with it. Like that's the way.
No doubt.
Works.
Yeah.
It's a wild thing.
That's big. Someone in our group had duck the other night. They said that was fabulous. There was a mushroom ravioli that looked good. I mean, I have yet to have anything I'm like, that was decent. But I will admit that the inner Pulp Fiction in me had to go to McDonald's to have a Royale with cheese.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you something, man. Listen to I don't mean anything mean to McDonald's in the U.S. It tastes different here.
Everybody says that. Everybody says that, Jason. I didn't go.
And for the better.
I did not do it. I regret that now that you say it because I do also love Pulp Fiction a great deal. So I should have done that while I was there. The other one, everybody told me to go to Jim Morrison's grave, so I did. Right? Like I was like, okay. And then I realized, like, okay, that's it. I saw the grave, and then I'm like, now what do I do with my day?
Right.
So that killed 20 seconds.
A lot of the stops along the way are like that. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
right. Seen it.
Like, it's cool. It's cool. We did all the like we did the Louvre. We went up in the Eiffel Tower. We did all, and it was great.
Sure.
And I enjoyed doing all of those things. Like I was all in. But the going to Jim Morrison's grave, I want to say like Oscar Wilde might also be buried in the same cemetery. So I was like,
oh, really?
I was like, all right, I'll go look at his grave too. But still, that got me to about 5 minutes. Like 5 minutes.
But see, here's the thing. This is the place. This is the kind of society, and because we were totally like, we get everything now. You click a button, it happens.
Yeah.
And for stuff like this, for right now, we feel that way. But 10 years from now, dude, you will flip through that picture 100 times and show your friends. It's just the way that we are now.
Jason Newton, remind everybody. So you'll be doing, of course, hits on WBAL TV among the many stations that you'll be working for.
Yeah.
And then
there's 3 of us, and I'll be up in 2 days. I'll be back up.
Okay, great. And on social media, I know it's at JasonWBAL on Twitter. What about on Instagram?
Yeah, Instagram, I think it's Jason_Newton11.
Awesome. Check him out there. Hey, man, really appreciate you doing this, but also truly appreciate you and Mindy and your guys' commitment to show your soft side. You know how much it means to me.
I do.
One of my favorite charities locally, so appreciate you and everything you guys do for them as well. Thank you for hopping on with us. Enjoy the trip.
Hey, this This was an honor. Thank you for thinking of me, man. We'll see you back stateside.
Sounds good, buddy. Jason Newton, WBAL TV, live in Paris at the Olympics. Appreciate him giving us a little flavor. It is, like, it's actually a problem for me, genuinely, because I just want to watch tennis this week. That's all I want to watch, because you get, like, that's the Olympics. First of all, NBC's coverage of the tennis has been bad, but that's a conversation for another day. But you get, like, a bonus Grand Slam in an Olympic year because all of the best players play at the Olympics. You got Novak Djokovic, Rafael Nadal this morning. So I'm like, oh, I'm obsessed with watching the tennis. And then I remember, like, oh, right, I love watching the volleyball during the Olympics. It's my favorite thing, and I'm missing it. And yesterday I missed the basketball game and the soccer match because I'm just watching the tennis, and then I have to watch the Orioles. I need like more time. I need like a 3-week Olympics. I need an extra week so I have more time to watch the things. I'd like to watch the rugby. I enjoy the rugby. It's great. The team sports, the individual sports besides tennis, don't do it for me. I'm not a track and field person. I don't know, the swimming, I was all in when Michael Phelps was swimming. And the relay swimming to me is awesome. But, like, it's just not my thing. Diving, anything that's a judging sport, I've said before, I'm out on. Gymnastics, anything that's judging, it just doesn't do it for me. Never will. Team sports at the Olympics, I love them. Love them, and I get very angry that I miss them because I'm just obsessed with tennis. Maybe I'll put on the Gold Zone. We can watch that. Let's do that. We'll put that on in the studio today. All right, thanks to Jason Newton for checking in from Paris. Let's get into the week that was for the Orioles, and I'll start with man of the match from the only win of the weekend. I was very torn yesterday because there were actually quite a few candidates. Cedric Mullins, both getting the job done at the plate, and of course the incredible catch in center field. It's a very complicated conversation when we talk about Cedric Mullins' future in Baltimore, because you're reminded that when Cedric Mullins is on, he's a game changer. He's not a good player. With all due respect to Austin Hayes, when Austin Hayes was on, he was a good baseball player. When Cedric Mullins is on, he's a game changer. And I understand that they have things that they want to do. Alan McCallum joined me on the radio show yesterday, and we talked about how the subplot to what's going on right now with the Orioles is that they're finally hitting that period of transition that seemed inevitable. That spot where they had to choose between, who, if any, of the old guard was going to stay moving forward. And clearly they've already moved on from the first in Austin Hayes. The reports continue to surround the idea that they're willing to move on from both Ryan Mountcastle and Cedric Mullins, ironically the two best players on the field yesterday. They're not, the one guy that's a free agent at the end of the year is the only guy that they're not willing to move on from, Anthony Santander, because he's too effing important to this baseball team. But they also haven't, done a deal to keep him around moving forward yet. So it looks like this transition that probably should have happened last offseason, but either because it would have been too difficult to do that coming off a 100-win season in which all of those players are very important, or because of the transition in ownership that made it confuse. Whatever reason, these things probably would have been better done in the offseason than in season. I don't know if these are the final days for Ryan Mountcastle and Cedric Mullins in Baltimore. It appears as though the Orioles are kind of saying out loud, they're not going to be with us long term. So if it's not now, then presumably it's the off season. It also goes into like the very complicated conversation that we've had about how all in the team should be, because the window doesn't just appear to be this season. There is a window for this season, and this season you have Corbin Burns, So if you believe that Cedric Mullins can be helpful to you to win the World Series this season, then maybe you hold on to him. The difficulty being, I'm not buying into Christian Pache as being the right-handed part of a platoon in center field. As I said on Friday, and no matter how many people tried to argue with me on Twitter and just say, dude, he's right-handed. Yes, he doesn't hit lefties. If he hit lefties, we wouldn't have a problem. You could justify his roster spot. I can't justify a roster spot for someone who doesn't hit lefties and sure as hell doesn't hit. I mean, he doesn't. My son would probably hit righties about as well. The one thing that he could offer is if he hit lefties. And to be fair, a season ago, he kind of did, but in an extraordinarily small sample size of 51 games. For his career, he has not hit lefties. So continuing to tell me, well, he plays defense and he's fast, that'd be helpful on a postseason roster, but just doesn't do anything for me on a regular season roster where guys have to play. I think you still need to address that problem. But that's sort of where we are. They move on from Cedric Mullins to do what? The easy thing is to say, well, Colton Cowser's playing center field. Okay. Now, are you committed to Heston Kjerstad in left? Because have you seen it? This is the problem. You're trying to force someone to play a position in order to get their bat in the lineup. As painful as it is, as I put up Ryan Mountcastle's face on the board, because he was man of the match yesterday with 2 huge 2-run singles. He did come around to score after one of them. The Ryan Mountcastle thing is complicated because he's obviously helpful to this baseball team. He's a good baseball player. But the redundancy factor strikes. So I hate saying it, but I will understand as he gets his 4th man of the match of the season. I will understand if the Orioles move on from Ryan Mountcastle. If they hold on to Heston Kjerstad and Kobe Mayo, and more of us think that they should probably be trying to extend Anthony Santander, you're running out of positions for these guys to play. And ways to get them at bats. You commit to Heston Kjerstad being the left fielder, but you realize like he's not a good left fielder. There's no way around that. You're trying to force a square peg into a round hole. And in a world where Colton Cowser's playing center field, he has good range, not Cedric Mullins' range, but certainly good enough that he can play. There's no question about that. Colton Cowser can play center field. And if you move on, that's not going to be the problem. The problem is going to be for the point of what? And I don't know that I can justify the answer being Heston Kjerstad playing left field. I, too, would like to see, if he stays around, I would like to see him in the lineup more frequently. But you guys saw it. Playing left field in Camden Yards has always been difficult. But particularly post-Wall, it's hell. And he is not a defensive left fielder. I like Cedric Mullins. I make no bones about that, right? He's one of my favorite baseball players. I acknowledge it has been a struggle this season. It has felt in the last few weeks like he, at times, has been turning the corner. If that is the case, then my God, you're going to regret the idea of moving on from Cedric Mullins. I would feel differently about it if I thought you had someone who was ready to play left field every day. And again, or if the team was worse. If the team was worse, then take your lumps, right? Like, if it was a bad baseball team and Cedric Mullins isn't going to be a part of it long term, all good, man. Move on, get what you can get. Let Kyle Stowers run around in left field. He's 26 years old. I mean, for God's sakes, you got to do something with Kyle Stowers. But they're not. It's really complicated. And again, seeing games like yesterday when the two best players on the field were those two guys. Although, actually, James McCann was also really good yesterday. Boy, we love to pile on James McCann. We got to show him a little bit more love. In the 6-run inning, 2 walks in 1 inning. And that came after, of course, he made the throw to third base, which was spectacular. I mean, that's as good of a throw as you'll see. Had a hit as well. James McCann was really good yesterday. He was on the short list for man of the match. The pitching, of course, was not good. The pitching, not so much. Not so much. And obviously the defense. The Gunnar Henderson thing is difficult because like he'll still make like that play where he was on the other side of second base. That was an excellent play. I don't know what's going on, man. The defense, adventurous all weekend. And again, the other takeaways from the weekend, spare me your, I hate Brandon Hyde, so whenever a player does anything wrong, I want to somehow blame Brandon Hyde for it. It's just boring and exhausting. It is not Brandon Hyde's fault that Craig Kimbrell can't do this anymore. Stop it with the, well, he was using him too much. Now he's using him too little, and now he's using him too much again. Stop it. You're just embarrassing yourself. Craig Kimbrell's no longer a high-level closer in Major League Baseball. It's over. Which doesn't mean he can't still be helpful. He still has a skill set that can help. But he's not a high-level closer in baseball anymore. Now, the problem for the Orioles is they don't have another one. They tried with Yanier Cano yesterday, and I get it, the defense hurt him, and that I understand. They don't have another option. Maybe Tanner Scott is someone they can reacquire at the deadline. I would like to hope that at this point, if they do, they don't try to do a bit where, well, Craig Kimbrell's still our closer. Like, I would like to hope that we're at the point where if you acquire someone who has closer abilities at the deadline, he's the closer. Craig Kimbrell is a leverage arm who can still be used in some closing situations from time to time. But if that's the problem, is that you think you need to set an alarm every 2 days at this time Craig Kimbrell can pitch, but then he definitely can't be the closer. That's the answer. If you think the problem is the usage, then he's not a closer. Plain and simple. Brandon Hyde can't invent a new one. They don't have them. We thought maybe at one point Tyler Wells could be a backup plan to be a closer, but that's also off the table. They don't have closing options at the moment. We'll see if that changes between now and 6 o'clock tomorrow. Albert Suarez, of course, was a mess. Dean Kramer was good. I mean, obviously Dean Kramer was a victim of awful defense. He did put too many guys on, but at least showed signs around the awful defense of perhaps being closer to being someone that if he has to be your 4th or 5th starter the rest of the way, you could stomach it. I'm still a long ways away from being confident in his ability to pitch in a playoff game, like Game 4 of a 7-game series. I'm still a ways away from that. But, like, there were definitely positive signs from Dean Kramer on Saturday, compounded by, obviously, the awful defense that was being played around him. But there were positive signs that maybe he could still be helpful in the rotation or could get back to a place where if he, in an emergency, had to start, in no world am I saying you don't need to get another starter. You do. And Zach Eflin's got to work. Like, to be fair, Zach Eflin, and we'll talk about it with Brian Anderson later in the program, has been pretty 50-50 this season. He's been either really on or not on. So we recognize the name, and he's been good, so we're like excited about it. But we can't pretend like Zach Eflin has been better than he's been this year. He's not a top of the rotate. The guy they're acquiring is not a top of the rotation pitcher. Maybe he becomes that. I'll root for it. Lord, I'll root for it. But he's got to, prove that he can be counted on as well. It's been 50-50. 4.09 ERA, 1.16 WHIP. Those are decent numbers. They're not top of the rotation like surefire. Yeah, this was there. You hope that you get a good version of Zach Eflin. You'd like to say, well, maybe you play some defense around him, but I've watched the Orioles recently. I'm not sure if they're interested in playing defense or not. I haven't been able to figure that out. Brutal. I don't know if there are any other takeaways from the weekend that I have. It was a bummer. The Friday night was a huge bummer. Friday night was just a massive, massive bummer because you got an early lead, you give it all back, and then some. And then it's that sort of lingering thing with Grayson Rodriguez where you were hoping this season that Grayson Rodriguez was going to develop into the pitcher that, like, you were in the post-Corbin Burns world, you were confident could be at the top of your rotation next season because you, at the moment, don't have another choice. Right now, you got him and Zach Eflin for next season. Neither one of them is an ace. And that's the Grayson Rodriguez problem, right, is that you keep wanting him to be an ace. And he keeps saying, like, I can be good, but not quite that. And, yeah, it's a 4-4 game in the ninth inning, and everybody's saying, well, why would you go to Kimbrel instead of going to Cano? You just pitched the day before. One, they got him up in the – one of the things we've talked about eternally is that when someone blows a save, you want to show them trust. You want to say, we believe in you, turn around, you're our guy, go get him the next day. And it's not like he's thrown such a totality. Again, this goes back to the what is the correct number of pitches? He had barely pitched in the days before that. You can't come up with the math equation of exactly when to go to Craig Kimbrel. At some point, you just got to say Craig Kimbrel's not good enough. Everybody's saying, why are you pitching to Jurickson Profar? Well, like, what are we doing here? Do you never pitch to anyone? It's one thing to say I'm not going to pitch to Aaron Judge in the ninth inning of a tie game. I'll pass on that, right? Like, I can understand that decision, even though I don't think they would make it. Like, at some point, you got to make pitches. So he hit a home run earlier in the game. So now you're certain that he's just going to hit another. I'm so befuddled by this notion of if you just walk somebody, there's no way the next guy can get to you. Just go ahead and put someone in scoring position in a tie game. Just do that, right? Just go ahead and walk Jurickson Profar. Now you got 2 runners on, including 1 in scoring position for the next batter. No way anything could go wrong. Like, we do the most instead of just saying, that's not okay. Craig Kimbrel has to be better. They got him up in the 8th because there was a chance they were going to go ahead. Frankly, you can go back to the 8th and say it's disappointing after the Santander home run and the leadoff double that you would have liked to have seen the Orioles get a rally going and not just settle for pushing across the tying run. We'll come back in. We'll go 3 up and 3 down. We will go over the week that was for the Orioles. It's brought to you by the Costas Inn. Get me your 3 up and 3 down at Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter or Facebook. 3 up and 3 down is next on GCR.
Frederick Keys baseball is back. With 30 more home games beginning on July 2nd, the Keys are excited to welcome you back to Nimio Field at Harry Grove Stadium. We want to see you there. Countless promotions will be on display every game, with it ranging from Tap House Tuesdays to Firework Fridays and everything in between. For more information or to buy tickets, call 301-815-9939 or visit frederickkeys.com today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. Learn more at DriveEasyMD.com.
Hagerstown, Maryland, a snapshot of American history that dates back centuries. Today, the roots of the city expand with another historical moment, the grand opening of Meredith Park, Hagerstown's new event stadium and home to the Atlantic League Flying Boxcars. Experience the energy, culture, and adventure. Plan your getaway today at America's newest and most innovative ballpark. You're welcome in Hagerstown, Maryland. Visit Hagerstown.com.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their legendary fat, delicious, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. It's crab season, so sit back and crack some crabs while watching the Birds pursue another divisional title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday night, the Costas Inn offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with two sides for under $30. So head on down to the Costas Inn today at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at CostasInn.com.
There he is, Agent 00 Chicken. Nothing can keep him from Royal Farms Chicken Palooza. Because right now, he can get a 3-piece world-famous chicken box for just $8 with a portion of each sale donated to a local charity. Plus, register to win world-famous chicken for a year. Come to Royal Farms Chicken Palooza. It's a real thriller, but it's only for a limited time. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Escape to Ocean City, Maryland, and discover a place that just feels lighter, where every day feels like Saturday and French fries are a food group, where flip-flops are always in fashion and seafood is always in season, where the boardwalk is bustling and the beach is right outside your door, where you can rise with the tide and feel like a kid again. Ocean City, Maryland, somewhere to smile about. Book your trip at OCOcean.com.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Monday edition of the program. It's not Garrett today. It's Grant. Well, you could just be Garrett if you want. Grant's in
Close
for Griffin
enough
this week. Yeah, it's all G names. That was the bit. All right. Today's show is also brought to you by the Stan the Fan Variety Hour. No show today. Today, because the trade deadline is tomorrow. Same thing. I'm not writing a column today at Pressbox. I'm going to wait until after the deadline so we have a more complete look. I wouldn't want to write something that, expired tomorrow. Just want to have a more complete look at where the team is at that point and the moves they make and they don't make. So no show today. Stan, Ross, and Luke will get together after the deadline tomorrow, and I'll be writing for Wednesday at PressBoxOnline.com. That's the game plan with the trade deadline going on. So if you're looking for Stan, Ross, and Luke today, just hold off, give it another day. They will get together after tomorrow's deadline. All right, Grant, it's time for us to go 3 up and 3 down.
3 up
and 3 down.
Yeah, don't turn my mic off when we do that. We'll get there, I promise. At some point, just in time for you to be headed back out again. We will get there. So we just got to tighten those things up a little bit. All right, 3 Up and 3 Down is brought to you today. Oh, you know what? I just gave that to Stay on the Fan, so he can have it. He gets 3 Up and 3 Down today. That's the way that it works. You know the drill. You take 6 games. You go which 3 Orioles are most deserving of praise, which 3 Orioles are most deserving of scorn. Griffin sent me his. Grant is going to give his own, and we'll see how he does making the list for the first time. We begin with the positives, and there weren't quite as many because, again, the Orioles only won 2 games this week. That's the way that it goes. But for me, on my 3-up list, I went with the only pitcher that I chose was Keegan Aiken. Keegan Aiken made 3 appearances. He went 3 1/3 in those 3 appearances. He did not allow a run. He allowed just 1 hit over 3 1/3 and no walks.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Keegan Aiken did his job. Did his job roughly as well as anyone did their jobs this week. And so Keegan Aiken makes the list. He's number 3. Who do you have as your number 3?
I'm going to go with Cowser.
Ooh, boy.
Cowser with the 364 batting average and a 962 OPS over these past 6 games. I mean, he's been one of the best hitters in the lineup as of late. So coming up clutch.
Much
Cowser.
higher on both of our lists because Griffin's got Corbin Burns at number 3. I get it. Actually, by Corbin Burns standards, I didn't. Early on, he was dominant against the Marlins, right? Like he was unhittable. But then as the game went on, he was a little bit more vulnerable. He did still go 7 1/3, and that matters. And so I can't really have beef with the fact that he put him on the list. But I don't know. I feel like we grade on a curve when it comes to Corbin Burns because the expectations are so insanely high that, if it's not perfection, I'm almost unmoved by it.
I'm going to be honest. I didn't choose a pitcher this week. It's all offense for me.
Okay.
But Aiken would have been a good selection.
My number 2 for the week was Ryan Mountcastle. Of course, that includes the 4 RBI game from yesterday. So he went 7 of 18 for the week. He finished with 7 RBI. Obviously, yesterday stands out. But, again, they only won 2 games. So that's the way that it works. Ryan Mountcastle, my number 2. Who's your number 2?
Cedric Mullins.
Okay.
Primarily because of the 4 for 15, 6 RBIs, and that catch he made yesterday. Big. You said he was a game changer earlier in the show, and that's exactly what he is. He does stuff like that late in the game, save runs. My number 2 is Cedric Mullins.
Griffin also had Ryan Mountcastle at number 2, and we also have the same number 1. Our number 1 is both Colton Cowser, who was outstanding. He was awesome this week. And what's super encouraging about how good Colton Cowser was is that if that's what you're getting, that can be a game changer. If this really is Colton Cowser finding it again, then that's a game changer. And that's a big storyline for this baseball team, even in a week where they went 2-4. I don't know that that's what it is. I don't know that it's count on this for the rest of the season as much as it's just 1 week. But if it is a major storyline moving forward for the Baltimore Orioles that Colton Cowser got right. Colton Cowser, number 1 for me and number 1 for Griffin. For you?
I went with Mountcastle on this one. And that's because when I watched the highlights, the two RBIs in the 8th inning saved the Orioles because, the 1 run that scored in the 9th inning, you have a tie ball game. I see stats. I mean, he hit 389 over the past 5 or 6 games, but you put the importance of that 2 RBI single in the 8th. That's what helped. That's what really helped us get the win yesterday. So I placed that in importance. But, my number 1's Mountcastle because of that hit.
All right, let's go 3 down for the week. I'll begin. My number 3 on the 3 down list, he saves. I'll get it out of the way. Gunnar did not make my list. He was saved from making my list by Ramon Arias. And only because there were enough positive things that Gunnar did, whereas I guess he got the first hit on Saturday, Ramon Arias, so he has that going for him. That was the worst moment. That was the rock bottom moment of the week. Oh, and on top of that, Ramon Arias was 1 for 11 for the week with 6 strikeouts. But the rock bottom moment of the week for this team was forgetting how to baseball. I mean, that's Keystone Cops type of stuff from Saturday. That is Like a little league team has that happen, not a Major League Baseball team. Ramon Urias, that can't happen 0 times. It's not that can't happen. That you can't imagine that happening at the Major League level. Clearly Gunnar Henderson is yelling. You're the third baseman. He's the shortstop. There's no, my buddy Thurl Nelson actually put out, posted something like, here's the hierarchy of I've got it. Center field, left and right field, shortstop, second base, third base, first base, catcher, pitcher. It's asinine to me that occurred.
But Arias used to play shortstop, so he should also know that too.
Even if he never played shortstop, you played baseball.
Right.
You know how this works.
You know.
You've ever played baseball, you know that ain't your play.
Nope.
And particularly when someone's yelling. That ain't your play, dog. Ramon Urias takes the third spot and avoids Gunnar Henderson avoids making the list because of it. Your number 3 was?
Gunnar. I think.
I get it.
I mean, rough weekend. Everybody has it. 174 average, just 1 RBI. The 5 errors stands out to me for what he can actually do with the glove. But I'm not extremely worried about it. Everybody has their stretches. So, new week, hopefully a new stretch for Gunnar. So he makes for number 3.
My Griffin's number 3 is Craig Kimbrell.
Okay.
He's much harder on Gunnar, and I'm much harder on Craig Kimbrell. His number 3 is Craig Kimbrell. I don't think we need to explain it right now.
Nope.
Griffin and I agreed on our number 2. It's Albert Suarez. He was an abomination in his first start in Miami. Of course, 2 innings and got batted around, 6 runs, 8 hits. Then yesterday, when he was spotted a 6-run lead, he still couldn't get out of the 5th inning. And I get it. The defense was a problem yesterday still, particularly Gunnar, but he was spotted a 6-run lead and couldn't give them 5 innings. It's the end of the line for Albert Suarez as a starter. And I understand the Orioles don't have – if they don't acquire another starter before tomorrow, they don't really have a better option to be their 5th starter. It would either have to be McDermott or Povich. But this is why the answer can't be they don't acquire another starter. It's God bless him. I think that he can still help in a long reliever role. I'm not ready to cast aside Albert Suarez altogether. He has still made big starts for this team this season. It's sort of like dealing with Cole Irvin. It's unbelievable that we've gone from a point where they were really helpful rotation arms to I'm not sure I can even trust them coming out of the bullpen in a long relief role. But that's where we are, and the Albert Suarez thing, this has to be the end for Albert Suarez in the rotation. It's just not good enough. He's my number 2, and he's Griffin's number 2 as well. Your number 2?
I hate to do this one, but I gave it to Adley. I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's been prolonged. I didn't think this week was worse than other weeks were, but I get it. It's prolonged. It's been a struggle. That's
really all I gotta say.
My number 1 is Craig Kimbrell. That he had 2 opportunities to do his job and he couldn't do his job.
You can't blow a 3-1 lead like that.
It's unfathomable to me.
Yeah.
That these issues continue. It's just unfathomable. Griffin gave it to Gunnar. It's tough. I get it. It was bad. And again, I think part of that is the standard that you have for Gunnar Henderson, that you expect so much from him, and so that makes it, all the more disappointing when you have a week like that. But again, he avoided it. He does not. He gets a stay of execution in mine. But he's number 1 for Griffin. And your number 1 for this week is?
I'm a little fumed about this one, but I think number 3 for Arias was generous for me because I put him at number 1.
Okay.
I mean, the 1 for 11 with 6 strikeouts is bad enough, but that's not your ball.
Yep.
That's not your ball. That's unacceptable. You know it's not your ball. Get away, let Gunnar take it. And if you're doing that in the big leagues, you just cost Kramer 2 unearned runs, and now you're already working behind when you're struggling to score runs to begin with. So I can't get over that. That's my number 1.
It's it's little league stuff. I mean, it's not even little league stuff. It's beyond that. I mean, it's unacceptable.
I'm not trying to be a jerk about it, but
and
it's baseball.
it comes at a time where Ramon Urias, the value of Ramon Arias has dissipated. The only argument for Ramon Arias being on the team still is their utter lack of right-handed bats. Like, that's it. They have to have someone in the lineup when they're facing a lefty. But I appreciate that Ramon Arias had moments. It's just that they have outgrown Ramon Arias, and that's a guy that looks like he's in his head now, and like he's thinking about that too much, and he's like, I have to force it now.
Don't just go and play a game.
Exactly right. All right, we will get it up at GlennClarkRadio.com. 3 up and 3 down for this week. Continue to get me yours again at Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter, Facebook.com/GlennClarkRadio. Someone who responds will be randomly selected to win a $50 gift card to the Costas Inn. That's a big win, so make sure you get your responses in for 3 up and 3 down. I'm continuing to just peruse and monitor and see if anything pops up rumor-wise. I mentioned, obviously, the John Morosi reports from this morning that the Orioles are still in on Tarek Skubal. I'd still be stunned. And, again, I'll give you the wording for Rot Kabatko. A couple of things. Maybe it became less likely that Mullins, this is from MASNsports.com, maybe it became less likely that Mullins would be dealt after Hayes went to the Phillies, but that's just more speculation. And with parting with Mullins opened the door for Kyle Stowers, a left-handed hitter like Colton Cowser, and Heston Kjerstad. It didn't seem possible for them to coexist with the Orioles until recently. Not everyone in the industry is sold on the Orioles keeping Christian Pache as a right-handed outfielder who's coveted for his defense, but they don't get a vote. The lack of offensive production makes him a steep decline from Hayes, who heated up at the time of the trade and was batting .323, .389, .492 against left-handers. Kobe Mayo is waiting in the wing. All right, hang on. I got to get down to the part that matters. Sorry. Here we go. Top-tier starters Tarek Skubal and Garrett Crochet suddenly appear more inclined to remain with their clubs, especially after the latter's agent said the left-hander wouldn't pitch in the postseason without a contract extension and wouldn't move to the bullpen. The Athletic reported that the Orioles have, quote, serious interest, unquote, in Giants left-hander Blake Snell, but there are hurdles, and the heights depend on who you're talking to, specifically which players the Orioles would part with in return. If you missed it over the weekend, by the way, Blake Snell had 15 strikeouts in his start on Saturday for the Giants. Looks like Blake Snell, but would also be a rental. And I'm not sure how you guys feel, given the way the Orioles have played again recently, about the idea of more of rentals. Like, sure, you can say depending on the cost, but all right. I found myself this weekend feeling like rentals can't be the answer. You can't put all your but I don't know. I don't want to say too much. Rock goes on to say, I spoke to a National League executive over the weekend who said the Orioles won't discuss Jackson Holliday, Kobe Mayo, or Samuel Basayo from the farm system, or Colton Cowser from the Major League club. Interestingly enough, Heston Kjerstad not mentioned among that group of players they said they wouldn't discuss. And that's an impression shared by some other front office personnel. But we keep reading trade proposals in the media, sodium levels rising from all the grains of salt that make it appear like the top 3 prospects are attainable. To Rock's point, if those guys are off the table, you ain't getting Tarek Skubal. It's just not happening. Forget it. If those 3 guys aren't available, there's no point to continuing to like when John Morosi says, so one or the other, they can't both be true. You can't be both trying to do a Tarek Skubal deal and not have those guys available. But maybe the answer is for that National League executive that reached out, well, we're not talking about them for your guys, but we'll talk about them for Skubal. There could be room in there for multiple things to be true. All right, we come back in. We'll take a break on Orioles conversation for just a minute. Jeff Diamond, former Vikings GM, Titans president, he's going to join us. Some thoughts on the Ravens going into the season. He's now with the 33rd team. That's next. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their legendary fat, delicious, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. It's crab season, so sit back and crack some crabs while watching the Birds pursue another divisional title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday night, the Costas Inn offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30. So head on on down to the Costas Inn today at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at costasinn.com.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor, dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin, and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
There he is, Agent 00 Chicken. Nothing can keep him from Royal Farms Chicken Palooza. Because right now, he can get a 3-piece world-famous chicken box for just $8, with a portion of each sale donated to a local charity. Plus, register to win world-famous chicken for a year. Come to Royal Farms Chicken Palooza. It's a real thriller, but it's only for a limited time. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now, and on the cover, Glenn Clark and Stan the Fan Charles sit down for a sports conversation with Maryland Governor Wes Moore, discussing the Orioles and Ravens stadium leases, the future of horse racing in Maryland, and how his own football career at Johns Hopkins shaped him as a leader. This is also our annual travel issue with information about sports tourism opportunities in Maryland for your family to take advantage of throughout the summer. Press Box is available for free at over 500 locations throughout the region, including 60 Royal Farm stores. Or you can read the entire issue at PressBoxOnline.com, where you can find great betting advice and the best daily coverage of the O's, Ravens, and Terps.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Monday edition of Glenn Clark Radio into hour number 2 of the program. Today's show is also brought to you by, this one's brought to you by County Sports Zone. We're getting closer and closer to the start of high school football season, and County Sports Zone is getting you ready. They've got previews. They've got all the news, all the information you need ahead of the start of high school football season. Again, County Sports Zone, countysports.zone. It's proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com, the folks at County Sports Zone. Real quick, just 2 other notes. It was good to see Lamar Jackson back out on the field this weekend at Ravens practice. You can't get me to get worked up about any of this stuff. It's the first week of training camp. Come on, man. I can't care all that much. But, yes, you'd still rather have him there than not have him there. I get it. I understand that. So it was good to see Lamar Jackson get back out there. And believe it or not, we've reached the first week of football. This Thursday night, the Hall of Fame game, the first exhibition game of the season. So that caught up on me as I was preparing for the week. I'm like, holy crap, that's this week. Wow. But then I remember it doesn't do anything for me. Let's talk some football this morning. Joining us now, former NFL general manager and former GM of the Vikings, team president of the Titans, and now he's with the 33rd team. It's a pleasure for us to welcome back to the program Mr. Jeff Diamond, who's with us now on GCR. Jeff, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's great to catch up with you. Thank you for taking a couple of minutes for us today.
Happy to do it, Glenn. Thank you.
Jeff, I want to pose this to you a way that I have posed it to so many people during the course of this offseason. The Ravens lost a lot. I know you wrote a little bit about their offensive line situation for the 33rd team. They lost 3 out of their 5 offensive line starters. They lost their defensive coordinator. They lost, Patrick Queen, who had been an impact, Pro Bowl inside linebacker. They lost Jadeveon Clowney. They did bring in Derrick Henry, but they didn't bring in a lot this offseason. And yet every time I ask someone whose opinion I respect in the league, around the league, doesn't it seem like we should be more worried about everything the Ravens lost? They kind of tell me, yeah, but it's the Ravens. Like, I just trust them to be able to replace those things. I trust their drafting and developing. I think they're going to be fine. Is that opinion too dismissive of how much the Ravens have lost this offseason?
Well, it could be, and I think obviously time will tell, but there were several key losses, as you mentioned, and I think it's now incumbent on the team to quickly develop some of these rookies, such as Roger Rosengarten at right tackle, replacing Morgan Moses, and obviously Derrick Henry's got to get up to speed on a new system, but he's certainly still a talented running back. We know that. The defense, as you said, has to replace their leading sacker in Clowney as far as edge rushers, but they did re-sign Matabike, who was a all-pro caliber defensive lineman, and I think they've got some really talented players on that team still. And Kyle Hamilton, to me, is one of the best young defensive backs in the league. The first-round pick from a couple of years ago, and now they have to bring in some other new players too to kind of fill the void of some of these players, such as you mentioned, Patrick Queen. Well, they drafted Trenton Simpson a couple of years ago, and so he's the guy that has to step up. But they've still got Roquan Smith, who's a tackling machine, and Lamar Jackson. So there's a lot of good things happening, but obviously we know the Ravens play in what I would consider the best division in the NFL, in the AFC North, and they're going to have a very competitive division this year, with the Bengals having Joe Burrow. If they can keep him healthy, then they're a top team, a Super Bowl contender. Cleveland and Pittsburgh were both in the playoffs last year. The Steelers have their quarterback issues to figure out with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. But I think the AFC North is going to be really a fun division to watch, and as the Ravens try to defend that title.
I was going to pose it to you this way, Jeff. Do you they are the defending champions of the division. Do you believe that they should be considered the favorite still in the division going into this season?
I would say not necessarily.
Okay.
Because I think that highly of Joe Burrow and the Bengals when he's healthy and producing and has that receiving core of obviously Chase and Higgins and so you talk about what the Bengals can bring to the table. I think it's kind of an equal start between those two teams with Cleveland and Pittsburgh very close in pursuit. And so, but I don't know that you can say the Ravens are a clear favorite, even though they obviously had the best record, won the division last year, have the reigning league MVP, add Derrick Henry. But there are some question marks, even on offense. For example, Rashad Bateman is a guy who has to step up in year three. He has 4 career touchdowns as a former first-round pick, and last year had 32 catches for 367 yards, 1 touchdown. So they're counting on Bateman to stay healthy and to be a good, I don't know, you call him number 2 to Zay Flowers, but he's got to step up his game clearly. And Odell Beckham is gone, among the other players that have departed. And then you talk about that offensive line. It's going to be a key. And obviously Mark Andrews is one of the best tight ends in the league, but he has to stay healthy, and he's fought through some injuries in the past.
We're chatting with Jeff Diamond of the 33rd team here on GCR. Jeff, one of the things that I've said, like I think that the Derrick Henry addition, I almost wonder if the division is not as important, and like, not saying they don't want to win it, but they are thinking about January football, and that's what they were trying to tell you when they went out and got Derrick Henry, is that they, not to say that they won't use Derrick Henry, but I hear people, there was this Todd Monken, somebody asked him about the idea of like, a 200 to 300. I'm like, I don't think that the story of Derrick Henry is the number of carries he has during the course of the season. My gut tells me the story of Derrick Henry is we want to be hammers in the postseason, and we want to play the best version of postseason football. Is it possible that Derrick Henry can be the difference maker for this team if they get to the postseason in being able to finally break through and make a run to a Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think he can, even though obviously he's now a 30-something player, and so, as you said, it's going to be important for John Harbaugh and the staff to manage his carries and not overuse him in regular season necessarily. And it's going to be interesting to see how they do that, because you can't just count on getting to the playoffs, because we know every year in the NFL there's going to be probably 6 new playoff teams, and that can happen to a team such as the Ravens, although I would certainly pick them to be a playoff team. Mm-hmm. So they need to get as many wins as they can. They need to get home field advantage to compete with the Kansas Cities of the world and Cincinnati and other top teams in the AFC. So it's going to be obviously a challenge, but I think you're right from the perspective that when they get to postseason, the weather turns a little colder. You want to run the ball a little more. By then, that new offensive line, the kind of revamped unit, should be more established, shall we say. But again, injuries are a big factor. Ronnie Stanley has to stay healthy, but I think they've got some really good players still on that offensive line. We know Linderbaum's one of the best centers in the league, but as you mentioned before, that battle for right tackle, Rosengarten is the guy who's assumed to win the job as a second-round pick. But Daniel Falele, I saw him a lot at the University of Minnesota. I'm up here in the Twin Cities, and he's a giant. And if they can continue to develop him, well, he may give Rosengarten a run for that right tackle spot.
So the crazy part being, Jeff, that it looks like they're going to try to give him a shot to win the right guard job, right? Like that they're which you give that body size and you're like, really? That's a guard? It almost like harkens back to some of the other guys over the years that perhaps like Jonathan Ogden once upon a time as a rookie being given the chance to play guard, but like it is kind of crazy to me that like they're giving him that opportunity at First Falele to be a guard.
Well, I think there are a lot of teams that like big physical guards, and that could be the motivation there. And certainly he's played tackle basically throughout his college career, early pro career, but he could certainly be a competitor for Ben Cleveland. Josh Jones is in the mix too, as a guy who's been around. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Daniel, I know he's a talented player and a big, big physical presence, and maybe they like that to have Derrick Henry run behind him. That would be quite the duo of big guys powering through.
I mean, that would be that would be imposing. There's no question about that. That would be extraordinarily imposing. Jeff, is there the concerns about this? Mike McDonald was such a savant when it came to scheming up pressure. There's a new offensive defensive coordinator, Zach, very young, a great story. Do you have concerns about a group that lost Jadeveon Clowney and lost the scheme and is now turning to a group of players, Kyle Van Noy's a veteran and can be helpful, but Odafe Owe, David Ajabo, a rookie Adisa Isaac out of Penn State that just does not have a history of production in terms of getting quarterbacks on the ground. Are you concerned at all about what they present in that area specifically?
Yeah, I think it is a concern, and I think that's what training camp is for, to get that development of players and young players. And a guy like Isaac, they haven't got him on the field yet with his hamstring, and so you've got to get those guys out there and start that development process. But they've got plenty of established veterans on that team and big-time playmakers. As I already mentioned, Hamilton, Matabike, Roquan Smith. So there's plenty of talent on that defense, and you just have to kind of fill in the pieces around there. And John Harbaugh has been around the block a long time, and certainly he'll have his input on that defense too, in terms of how they're developed and who's playing and what kind of schemes they're running and what kind of mix of personnel. So it does create certainly an interesting situation, definitely for the Ravens, because that defense has been so strong in recent years.
All right, Jeff Diamond, before I let you go, if I could, obviously last week there was the big story in the Washington Post about the progress that the league and the union are making towards an 18-game season. I think we all kind of believe it's inevitable. To you, how does it work? What does it look like? Because it feels like we're not saying if anymore. It feels a lot more like we're saying when things go to 18 games.
Yeah, I think we all have a concern from the injury standpoint and the safety standpoint for players. And I do a lot of work with an NFL agent firm now based in Minneapolis, IFA. And so it's a concern for our player clients. The key to the equation, obviously, is can the players make some more money?
Right.
So if indeed the 18-game schedule creates more TV revenue out of the mix, and that TV revenue translates to higher player salaries, then I think players will buy in, especially the rank and file players who, as the minimums go up, that's a great thing. When you talk about maybe the minimum salaries move from the 700s to the 800s, and by your second year you're making $1 million. Well, that's significant when the average player career is about 3.6 years. So it doesn't have as much of an effect on the, shall we say, the all-pro caliber players, the Burrows and the Jacksons and the Aaron Rodgers of the world and Patrick Mahomes necessarily. But even they can make a little more money too, even though those quarterbacks are already getting pretty well paid.
Yeah, right.
As we saw with Jordan Love most recently, on a guy that has 10 career starts.
Yeah, more or less.
And he's making $55 million a year.
Hey man, that's the math. Do you play quarterback? Are you up for a contract? Here you go. That's the way that it works. Might you be the answer? You get a boatload of money. Jeff Diamond, obviously the 33rd team, folks can see your stuff there. Is there anything else that we can plug for you or point people to that you've got going on?
Yeah, sure. On Twitter or X at Jeff Diamond NFL, and I also do a podcast that's more Viking related per se on the Talk North Network up here in the Twin Cities. I'll be heading out to training camp for the Vikings today. It's the first day of fully padded practice. So that's always kind of an exciting time and a really interesting time at camp when the intensity ramps up, some of the emotions start to boil over, and the weather is hot. It's going to be upper 80s here today. And so that's going to be certainly an interesting and fun day out at training camp for the Vikings today as I do my coverage for all my media outlets, including I do some work for the ESPN station here in the Twin Cities.
I was going to say, upper 80s in Minnesota is basically like the surface of hell there, right? Like that is, and in a month it'll be snowing. That's the way that it goes. Jeff Diamond.
Well, hopefully not.
Yeah, right. Really appreciate taking the time for us this morning. Thanks so much for doing this. Let's talk again real soon, all right?
Thanks a lot. Take care. All the best.
That's Jeff Diamond, former NFL executive and now with the 33rd team with us here on GCR. I just saw a note that Maryland basketball is going to play Syracuse in Brooklyn on December 21st. Now, I would assume that hang on a second. I've got a calendar. I know things. December 21st is a Saturday. Steelers play the Ravens that day. Never mind. Take it back. I was going to say that might be a neat day to take the kids up to New York and, do like the Christmas time in New York bit, but not an option. Thanks a lot. Got to have those Christmas Day NFL games on a Wednesday, so the Steelers have to play the Ravens on a Saturday. So take that off the list. But, yeah, Maryland's going to play Syracuse in Brooklyn, so if for some reason you are not as concerned, I also don't know what time it is. Maybe you could work it out that you could go to the Maryland game and still watch the Ravens game. It's like the Ravens game that day is at 4:30, if I remember correctly. I think it's 4:30 for the Ravens-Steelers game. I don't know if they announced game time for the Maryland-Syracuse game. Maybe if you're not as concerned about, hang on, do they announce a game time for this game? Let's find out. Shall we? No. Game time. The game time and television will be announced at a later date. So, nope, can't help. Sorry. But that's a neat non-conference game, Maryland-Syracuse in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center coming up on December 21st. It is a Monday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. Today's show also brought to you by the print issue of Press Box, which is still available for another couple of weeks. It's starting to dwindle down, but this print issue with Governor Westmore on the cover can be found for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of the hundreds of locations around town where you find Press Box. You can read it all at PressBoxOnline.com. It's also our travel issue. You can go get that print issue of Press Box just another couple of weeks before that one is gone. All right, we don't know yet what the Orioles might still do before tomorrow's deadline, but we do know about two moves they already made. Of course, the Austin Hayes trade, and then last Friday they also shipped 3 prospects, Jackson Baumeister, Mac Horvath among them, to Tampa in order to acquire Zach Eflin. Joining us now to tell us a little bit more about the Orioles' new pitcher, he is Rays color analyst and former MLB pitcher himself, Mr. Brian Anderson, and he is with us here on GCR. BA, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's great to chat with you, man. Thank you for taking a couple of minutes for us this morning.
Hey, for sure. I am wheeling my way out. I'm at the grocery store with the kids.
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah.
Well, you can always tell us.
Oh, my gosh. Don't you dare. We had set this up far in advance.
No,
and this is what – you know what this is? This is what happens when you have an off day at home.
Yeah.
It becomes an admin day where you are just trying to catch up on everything you can't get done when you're on road trips and when you're working every day. So it's one of those days I've been running around like a chicken with my head cut off all morning.
Dude, I will tell you that working in this business, because I am constantly asking other people if they will come on my show, that whenever anyone asks me if I'll come on theirs, I am inclined to always say yes, right? Like, just because it's a reciprocal thing in this business, right?
Right.
I want to make sure, it's okay. I had my 9-year-old was in the hospital last week. He's okay. He had a little bit of a pneumonia. He's fine. It's okay, right? But I had someone that I'm a regular with in Kansas City call me and say, hey, could you come on today? And I was like, I don't want to say no, but I got a kid in the hospital. And they're like, oh, God, of course. But I'm like, but I guess I could. And it was like, that's how much I don't want to say no to anybody whenever they reach out. Just because.
No, I hear you loud and clear. But yes, this is fine. I look forward to coming on when I get the opportunity to. So fire away.
All right. So Zach Eflin, last season was a revelation in Tampa. He's still been good this year, but not quite as good as he was a year ago. What are the Orioles getting in Zach Eflin?
A winner. You're getting a winner. This is what I will tell you. I think his record with the Rays, his personal record, is 21-16. But what I will tell you is that he has made 50 starts as a member of the Tampa Bay Rays, and the Rays in his 50 starts went 33-17. So that's 2 out of every 3. I mean, that's what the goal of every team is to win series, to win 2 out of 3, and that's what Zach Eflin does. When he goes out, it's not always pretty, but he is a winner. He pitches winning baseball. If he has to pitch and win a game 6-5, he'll do that. If he needs to go out and win a game 1-0, he can do that too. So that's what you're getting. You're getting a guy who goes out, knows how to navigate a lineup, knows how to navigate a ball game, be able to make adjustments and make sure that his team, even if it's not his best night, make sure that his team stays within striking distance and that they have a chance to win that game. Like I said, 33-17 was the record when Zach took them out to the Rays, and you cannot argue with those numbers.
What about, what has the difference been between last year and this? Like, why was he so good a year ago and good this year?
You know what? It's his misses. So
Okay.
Zach is a strike thrower. And I think that there was a time, in his first 15 starts or so, where he was in the strike zone maybe a little bit too much. There were too many hittable pitches. Instead of the miss being just off the plate, the miss was running to the middle of the plate. And, he doesn't have the kind of overpowering stuff that he can miss out over the heart of the plate very often. He's got to pitch to the corners. He has to sequence his pitches very well. And that's just the way that he has to go about it. Now, listen, he's a really good command guy. So he is very capable of sequencing, commanding, moving the ball around the strike zone, keeping hitters off balance. But it seemed that early in the year, there were just too many pitches catching too much of the plate. And he was too many, his zone rating was so high. The major league average for a pitch in the strike zone is actually below 50%. It's 48.6. He was in the mid to upper 50s. There was a time that he was at 57% in the zone. That's too much. That's too much. You want to be in the zone, but you want to be in the zone and out. You want that pitch to look like it's going to be on the outer third, and then it's just off the plate a couple of inches, and you're getting poor contact. And I think that just early on, too many pitches catching too much of the plate. He's tried to make that adjustment and try to get a little bit more chase, and it's been better for him. But that's been the main difference. So other than that, the stuff is the same. The stuff is the same. The approach is the same. He's actually been healthier this year than he was a season ago. So, I think that Baltimore is getting a good one. And like I said, at the end of the day, he's a winner. He knows how to do things to put his team in a position to win.
Brian Anderson with us here in GCR. To your point, look at the walk per nine is still down at 1.1. The strikeouts just down from 9.4 to 7.1 this season. Per 9 innings. So those that jumps out exactly what you're talking about. Brian, obviously, between Tampa and Philadelphia before that, he's been on good teams. I assume there's no concern about Zach Eflin being thrown into a middle of a playoff race and pitching in big games and into the postseason.
No, not at all. Not at all. He's been there, done that. And he's pitched a lot of big games for the Rays and for other teams that he has been a part of. You said Philadelphia in particular. So I don't anticipate that at all. I mean, he's a veteran. He's very well prepared. He's not afraid of the big moment. That's not going to be an issue with him whatsoever. And I think more than anything else, he's probably energized, you know what I mean, to be going to a Baltimore Oriole team that, listen, this team, when it's right, it is a fantastic team. It's a fun team to watch. They can beat you so many ways. So to be able to go to a situation like that where all of a sudden you jump right to the top of the division, I think that's something that he's probably pretty excited about. But yeah, no qualms at all about him having to pitch in big games down the stretch, playoff games. That's not gonna affect him at all.
And then what about just the nature of Zach Eflin and who is he in the clubhouse?
A leader. He's the guy that pitching staff looks up to. He has taken on that kind of a role where, he holds himself accountable. He's going to hold other guys accountable. Now, that may be a little different dynamic coming to a new team, but he's going to fit in seamlessly. He's a team guy. He's not a guy that's off to himself. I've played with pitchers that you just kind of left them over in their corner and you didn't mess with them too much. He's not one of those guys. He will immerse himself in the team. He's a team first guy. And he's a great teammate. So he's a hard worker. Everything that you would want. That's who that epitomizes Zach Eflin. And I think that obviously Baltimore, in my opinion, is getting a good one. And I think that his best pitching this season is ahead of him because I think that he's been able to highlight some things that need to change for him to get better. And he has started to put that into practice, and I think that you'll get the best version of him coming here down the stretch.
I'm just a little bit worried he might be a glutton for punishment, Brian. The three daughters, all under 2.5 years old, and another one on the way. I'm a bit concerned That like he just might be a sociopath signing up for that.
Not yet. Not yet. That's not going to kick in yet. Give it a
Wait till
couple
they're
more
teenagers,
years, and then
right?
I'm with you.
Right.
I'm with you.
100%. He will have completely lost his mind at that point. Brian, what's the reaction been is it as simple as, hey, this is the way the Rays operate? We just know if they're not in it, they're going to trade away the parts that might have any value and reset and do it all again? Or, is there still frustration when they go through this, despite the fact that they have shown time and time again this is the way it's going to be in Tampa?
You know what? There is frustration. There is. With the fan base, there's no question about it, because they grow to love these guys, especially a guy like Randy Arozarena. I mean, he was a guy that the community embraced. He embraced them. Every Friday night home game, they had Randy Land out in left field, a couple of the sections, special tickets and T-shirts. And, that was the kind of impact that he had, on the Rays community, on the fan base. And so when he goes, part of their hearts are ripped out. And while you can say, they've done this time and again, and it always seems to work out, it's still, it causes the fan base to maybe not be as into it as they want to be, because they know as soon as I fall in love with this guy, especially if he's good, he's gone. So I think that does have a negative effect. And I think this one hits a little bit harder too, because you think about, you had the early trades of Savali and Maton. I don't think that really moved the needle with the fan base. But then all of a sudden, basically over the course of a weekend, you've got Arozarena, Eflin, Jason Adam. Yesterday morning, I did the Roku game. So the game was at 11:30 in the morning. So I get to the ballpark at about 8:15, and there's already rumblings that somebody big might be gone. Well, it turns out it was Jason Adam, and that news broke before that game. And then on my drive home, I get a text, oh, by the way, Isak Brady's been traded too. Like, whoa. So you're talking about your number one reliever gone, your fan favorite Arozarena gone, your opening day starter Eflin gone, and your all-star representative gone over a weekend. I mean, even for the Rays, that seems a little extreme.
Have they?
So,
have they earned the benefit of the doubt that, like, hey, the cold calculating way of this baseball is a business, calculate value, get value. Have they earned any benefit of the doubt to say, like, hey, but this is the way they do things. This is just the way it's going to be, and we'll get to know a new group of players in the next couple of years?
Yes, I think that they absolutely have, because there's a track record, a track record of success. And I think that, even the haul that they got, and I don't know these guys, inside and out by any stretch.
Right.
But the three prospects they got from the Padres, all three were the top 15 in the Padres system. And so you're hearing that, wow, that is quite a haul for Jason Adam, although Jason Adam is a lockdown, forget about it reliever. I mean, he's going to go out there and just saw people up. That's what he's done ever since he's come over to the Rays. But they got a lot of really good prospects for them, and so you're hearing good things about the return, and because of the track record and, everything that they've done in the past, there's definitely a benefit of the doubt. And there are certain members of the fan base, vocal fan base, that are saying, hey, guys, trust them. Just trust them. I mean, because here's the thing. The Rays came into this season, and they were probably $20-25 million over their comfort level in payroll. But they were willing to do it because they thought that this group could get it done. And they were going to give them every opportunity to prove that they were going to go for it. And so they came in and said, we're just going to bite the bullet. And whether or not you agree with the number as far as payroll goes, it was still uncomfortable for them. It was the highest, I think, of the Rays era since 2008. So all of a sudden, here we go. We're going to give you every opportunity. And, I know it's give or take, but basically you give that team about 100 games, and they tell you that they're a 500 team.
Yep.
Well, what would you do?
Yep.
What would you do? Because all of these guys that are arbitration eligible, those numbers are all going to go way up next year. So, and you're not going to pay that. So you might as well get something for them, because you gave them every opportunity to show you that they are a playoff team, a division winning team. They are a World Series possibility team. And yet 100 plus games in, and you're right at 500. So you almost can't blame them. We gave you every opportunity, and it hasn't happened. So now we have to do what we got to do.
So I'll tell you, I like all three of the prospects that they got. I like Baumeister. I like Horvath. I really like Matthew Etzel. And there's also Brian, the small part of me that's like, well, hey, if the Rays want him, there's that little thing that makes me worried about it. But I like all three of those guys. I think it's a real price, but still a move the Orioles needed to make. Brian, really appreciate taking the time for us this morning, man. Thanks so much for doing it, and please go and be with the kids. Thank you for hopping on.
Oh my gosh! Oh, for absolutely sure. I'm so glad to hear that your son is doing well. I know how scary that can be.
Yeah.
So, thankful for that. You have a wonderful rest of the day, and we will talk down the road.
Thank you, man. Really appreciate it. Brian Anderson, Rays color analyst, and of course former MLB pitcher. Appreciate him hopping on with us. One trade that was made today that I haven't had an opportunity to talk about yet. Michael Lorenzen goes from the Rangers to the Royals. The Royals, who low-key managed to put together a really good baseball team. I know they're not perfect, and I'm still not sure that they can win a World Series, but you just keep looking at their roster wow, that's some damn fine roster construction without going crazy. Clearly the Seth Lugo thing is bonkers how good of a move that was. That was insane. But just the way they put together the roster, you're like, boy, I'm kind of jealous. I'm admittedly quite jealous of the way they've gone about putting together their team. Yes, Grant?
I mean, I was just going to say they're young. It's kind of like where the Orioles were a couple years
I don't know
ago.
if you've heard Bobby Witt's good. Not sure if anybody's gotten that memo. He's decent. Jesus. It's always that awkward thing.
Pasquantino.
I do these regular hits, and I'm doing another one today in Kansas City with my buddy Seren Petro, and every time he'll bring up starting to think at all about whether or not maybe Bobby Witt was the better answer. I'm like, okay, bud, yes.
Boy.
But I could always say, hey, but it was Rutschman and Henderson. So, if they had drafted Witt, they wouldn't have drafted Henderson.
But how can you pass on such a high-quality catcher like that?
No, I'm not.
No,
I'm not.
Yeah.
I won't engage with that, but, God, Bobby Witt is good.
Yeah.
So insanely good.
That's a 5, 6, 7 tool player.
Son of a bitch, that guy's good. We continue to monitor what may or may not happen over the course of the next 30 and a half hours. Not quite. Almost 30 and a half hours until the trade deadline. We don't have to. Why don't we do this? I told him it would probably be a couple minutes. Let's take our last break, and then we'll call Jeremy. All right? Let's do that. We'll take one more break, then Jeremy Conn, of course, Big Bag Morning Show 105.7 The Fan. He'll join us next on GCR.
Escape to Ocean City, Maryland, and discover a place that just feels lighter, where every day feels like Saturday and French fries are a food group, where flip-flops are always in fashion and seafood is always in season, where the boardwalk is bustling and the beach is right outside your door, where you can rise with the tide and feel like a kid again. Ocean City, Maryland, somewhere to smile about. Book your trip at OCOcean.com.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
Frederick Keys baseball is back. With 30 more home games beginning on July 2nd, the Keys are excited to welcome you back to Nimio Field at Harry Grove Stadium. We want to see you there. Countless promotions will be on display every game, with it ranging from Tap House Tuesdays to Firework Fridays and everything in between. For more information or to buy tickets, call 301-815-9939 or visit frederickkeys.com today.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from driveeasymd.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. There, you just saved money with Easy Pass, all without slowing or receiving a notice in the mail. Well done, thrifty driver, well done. Get your Easy Pass at driveeasymd.com.
The Ed Block Courage Award Foundation has been working in partnership with the NFL for 46 years to support abused, neglected, and at-risk youth across the country, partnering each team with a children's facility or program that supports the well-being of those in need. Annually, one player from each team is selected by their peers to receive the Courage Award for their inspiration on and off the field. Learn more about how the Ed Block Courage Award Foundation makes a difference, and be sure to check out their latest podcast and web series episodes at edblock.org.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Monday edition of the program. And, of course, if it's Monday, that means we're catching up with our buddy from the Big Bad Morning Show over on 105.7 The Fan. He is Mr. Jeremy Conn, and he's back with us now here on GCR. What's going on, dude? How are you?
What's up, man? I'm good. I got to ask you, though, knowing that the young Pete Sampras is off, what are we dealing here with this kid Grant? Because he sounds a little young.
Yeah, he's young.
Is he okay? How's it working out?
No. He's fine. He's a baseball. His entire brain is baseball. It's like all he knows. He's just this baseball obsessed person. So anytime he's not like putting on, I actually meant to tell him before he came in, he could put on his catcher's gear if it made him more comfortable while he was doing the show with me, and I totally forgot.
Can he hold down fingers to which caller you should go to?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Like, go to 2.
Pretty good.
Well, I don't know. Do you have at that level? Do you have PitchCom now, Grant, or are you guys still using?
No, we don't do PitchCom.
I don't know how that works.
How impressionable is he? Because I think I've already messed up the other one that you have.
Oh God, yeah, you've ruined him for sure. Do you? I don't know if you remember this. One of my favorite things, and I always. I do this every now and then. I always forget to try to mess with these guys a little bit. So every now and then, like when I do a live broadcast, we'll have a new producer, and I will like say, hey, it's customary for the new producer to do the pre-broadcast prayer. And like,
so good.
I'll have them look at me for a second, and then you end up running into somebody who's like very religious and excited about it. You're like, oh, well that backfired, right?
Well, thank you.
Yeah, right. But, like, you'll do that, and then, like, you'll get that awkward silence for a minute, and then I'm really good at, like, seeing how far they go to see if they start, like, okay.
Well, they do that to our, all the new salespeople we have at the station when we're getting ready to have, like, a big, sales meeting or something, or, a big company thing. We'll tell them they got to go up and basically sing the school fight song.
Right.
They give them something they're supposed to sing. And it is funny because, one or two of them are always like, are they being real or is this really happening?
Right.
So, yeah.
One of my favorite things that Bachman ever did as a producer is he would call, and if it was one guest, he did it with, sporadically. So Vinny Iyer from the Sporting News could be coming on. And he'd be like, hey, Vinny, do me a favor. He'd be like, all right. Can you go ahead and take your shirt off? These tend to go better when your shirts are off.
Yeah.
It was just so good.
What?
It was just so, and Bachman would deliver it completely, deadpan. He would just, yeah, man. Over the years we've just sounded like most of them sound better when you take your shirt off. If you don't mind, go ahead and take your shirt off.
What's great is I've hooked Ray up with so many different people that he's actually DJ'd my wedding, one of them. And then all my friends' weddings too. He's the best, man.
He's the best. He's the best, man. He's the best. Love that guy. All right. I know that we're normally. I do want to take some time here. Obviously, yesterday was Mo Gabba Day, and it was wonderful. Sanzi and Lynn and everybody before the game down on the field. And I was talking to Priestley about it, and I appreciate you getting me in touch. I don't know how I lost his number. I always use the wrong word. I say it's like our responsibility, but he's always like, nah, it is our responsibility, but it's really our honor that we need to make sure that we're continuing to tell the story because we are 4 years removed. Like and it's crazy to think that we're 4 years removed. But the number of people that are going to ask the question, who was Mo Gaba, is going to continue to grow in the coming years. So I guess twofold, what does it mean to you that the Orioles are continuing to do it? And it wasn't just like, hey, a one-year thing, and now we'll move on with our lives. The importance of that and how important it is for us to continue to talk about Mo every time we get to something like this.
But, yeah, I saw Ryan Ripken had a chance to interview Trey, and if people haven't seen it on his podcast, it was great. Just hearing Trey talk about Mo, and it's kind of like, Glenn, you know it as well as everybody else. You've been around him. You meet him, and it changes you, man. It makes you realize, like, all of your problems aren't that serious, right? Yeah. That you look at a kid like this that's having, going through what he's going through, and he just always stayed so positive. And I think you're right. I think it is upon us to bring it up. And I was a little torn initially when Mo Gaba Day was going to be on the day that he passed, but I almost think that this might help with a little reprieve for Sanzi to get, she goes to a baseball game, gets to see how many people loved her son on that special day. And by God, the sun comes out every Mo Gaba Day and blinds an outfielder with sunglasses on his
amazing,
hat.
Right?
But no, man, it's my privilege to talk about him. If people are bored hearing me talk about him, oh well, because everybody I meet, like my wife was laughing at me because I'm wearing my Mo Strong shirt and I wear it on vacation all the time. And there are a lot of people that think it's Missouri Strong. And then I tell the story, or I text them. I said, give me your cell. I text them the video to watch from the NFL Network. It's just so important, man, that we keep his, if you want to call it a legacy, his legacy alive.
I greatly appreciate it, and it's something we're going to continue to do and explain. He was the greatest human that ever lived. And I'll tell you, man, and you and I talked about, like, I brought it up to my son a couple of times last week as we're sitting in the hospital, and I couldn't help but notice that, like, my 9-year-old had such a really positive disposition about everything that was going on. And I said at one point, I was like, you know why I'm so proud of you, man? I really did. I got emotional a couple times with my son just because he was handling everything so well while he was in the hospital last week. And I got really emotional, and I said, like, this is the spirit of Mo. Like, this is – and he and I have talked – Sanzi gave my kids so much of Mo's stuff. I don't feel worthy of it, right? Like, I keep looking at their shelves, and, like, there's all of these things that – like, we were just over at her house one night, and she was like, here, I want you to have it. It would mean a lot to me to my sons. And, like, I talked to them a lot about Mo because, they were far too young to really understand it at that point. And I said to him a couple times last week, I'm like, you're showing me Mo's spirit right now, and that is the greatest thing that I could ever say about a kid. Like, that's how proud I am of you in this moment.
Hey, your kids aren't ordering video games on my Venmo, are they?
Well, that's a conversation for another. Dude, I really do have a problem, and I shared it on social media. Early on when we got to the hospital last week, and, like, even though I didn't think it was all that, like, it was rough, but it wasn't like I was ever worried that, like, my kid was gonna die. You know what I mean? Like, it was
doesn't matter. You're a dad, and
yes.
You still feel that, man.
And so in the moments where it was the worst, when, like, the oxygen was all the way up, when he was on three liters, and it was just like I would say things like, hey, dude, when you get out, we're going to an Orioles game. And then he would say back, like, can we go to one on the road? And I'd be like, yeah, buddy, you got it. Like, we'll go to one
whatever
on the road.
You want.
Right? He saw a commercial for, like, I think Applebee's was advertising, like, cheap mozzarella sticks or something last week. And he was just like, hey, man, when I get out, can we have mozzarella sticks for dinner? I'm like, hell yeah, buddy. We're doing mozzarella stick dinner. You got it, pal. Whatever we got to do. Then he was like, what about mozzarella sticks for breakfast? But yes. I'm so glad you asked. And
we're going to have so many sticks, you're going to go crazy.
Right?
Cheesy.
And then on Friday.
I mean, that's what you do in those situations,
100%.
right? Because
I was so worried about him remembering all of those when he got – so he gets out yesterday, and we're at home watching the game on the couch, right? And, like, I'm having the I'm just texting thank you, by the way. My buddy Josh Charles is listening this morning, and we were talking about this. Like, I'm very emotional about it all, right? Like, just having him home and sitting on the couch together watching the game, right? Like, I'm getting a little, it's hitting me a little bit, right? And he looks over at me and says, don't forget you told me you buy me a hydration station when I got out. I'm like, son of a bitch. I got no choice. I'm going to have to do it. It's like I can't.
Yeah, I love it. I love this, like your kids, they instead of actually performing how they were supposed to when they came out to see me in the dunk tank, they did knock me under. I think they just kept hitting the button every time I
it's
climbed
exactly
up,
the way that it is. No, they love you because you're very playful with them, and I appreciated that. And,
but, it's the same thing, too, like you're talking about, and like you think about your kids at their age, and you said 9 is that your what are the two ages? By
9 and 7.
So 9 is when I was first introduced to Mo, and like you look at your son, and like I look at myself back when I was his age, like all these things of how much confidence this kid had to just do all the things he did. So it is really cool, man. And like for any parent out there, anytime you go to the hospital with your kid, whether it's something small or large, you feel like you don't have any control over it. So you feel helpless.
Yep.
And so it is a tough watch to see that, see your kids go through it.
He's a great kid, and he couldn't have done better. And
he's all right.
Yeah.
I like the other one better.
Yeah, I don't blame you for that. Hey, you know what's weird? Me too. I didn't say that. I didn't.
That's awful.
It's a joke. I do not remotely mean that. Well, it depends on what day. Well, depending on the day. Yeah, I don't mean that.
I understand that fully.
All right. So give me the moves they made on Friday. What they still need to do, where you at with the totality of the trade deadline at this point?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, the Austin Hayes thing kind of caught me off guard, even though I thought, those guys could be in play. Like I'm one of the few people that have been talking about this team is eventually going to move on from Cedric Mullins, Ryan Mountcastle, Austin Hayes. And if, God forbid, they trade Kierstead or if they keep him, Santander's probably not coming back. So, I mean, there is kind of a changing of the guard going on, but I love the move for Eflin. I mean, there's a couple different things to look at. First off, he was 6th in the Cy Young voting last year. Mm-hmm. He doesn't walk. I just hate guys that come out and give free passes.
Yep.
Because why? I mean, if we're sitting here focused on OPS, why are you nibbling? Challenge these guys. Make them earn their way onto base, and that's basically what Eflin does. You have him through next year. The other thing that I love is that he's owed $18 million, and the Orioles showed me, at least for a small percentage, that they're willing to add on some payroll. So I think that's a good sign. In my opinion, I'd like to see him add another starter and reliever. If they trade a hitter back, maybe there's a swap of some sort. But I wouldn't be shocked at anything happening in the next, till 6 o'clock tomorrow. It's going to be wild.
I'm in a weird place with, I have no beef with the Hayes trade. I get it. He was a platoon player. That wasn't changing. Like, they weren't going back to Austin Hayes full-time player at any point. And so at that point, they did what they did. I have no interest in Christian Pache staying on the roster. None. You can spare me he's fast and he plays defense. And if this was the playoff starting today, I would agree. You use a roster spot on that. He can't hit lefties. Like, he doesn't hit at all ever and under any circumstance. I can't give a regular
righties.
Yeah, I mean, right. Well, if you think he can't hit lefties, he can't hit righties to save his life. Like, he could never play against a righty. But being the idea that he's the right-handed side of a platoon, he doesn't hit the lefties. So how could he possibly be that side of a platoon? So I think they need to do better than that, and I don't think that he should be on the roster. And I get it. Like, I understand the argument of, somebody's got to do the Jorge Mateo thing. I can find someone who's fast. There are fast humans that exist. I do not need to give a roster spot to someone who can't hit. But I have no beef with the trade, to your point. Once you made it, I am in a really different place between Mountcastle and Mullins. The Mullins thing is he still provides me too much value with, the possibility that he can be turning it on offensively, and I just don't trust Heston Kjerstad to play left field yet in order to commit to Colton Cowser being the everyday center fielder. The Mountcastle one, I do. I hate it because I like Ryan Mountcastle a lot. But the redundancy thing, because I don't trust Heston Kjerstad to play left field, you do have a problem there, particularly with Kobe Mayo slated to be here anytime. Like, you keep trying to throw someone in left field that can't really play left field. And, by the way, Oriole Park has become one of the most difficult places to play left field. You do have a redundancy problem. And so it won't bother me if they move on from Mountcastle the same way. I also think he might have a little bit of value, and I don't know how easy it's going to be to get any value for, Cedric Mullins given the season that he's had. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe teams, still think of him as the higher level player.
And to your point too, you're looking at a guy, and if they do trade Mountcastle, that is under control for still a little bit more time.
Yeah.
So I think there is some interest from teams, and he's a proven commodity at the major league level. I just always felt like Mountcastle wasn't their guy.
Yep.
So that's why we see what we see right now and the talks about them moving him. The one thing I'll say is I do think Cowser is a really good outfield. But in my opinion, Cedric Mullins is a one-of-one out there defensively. And I'm not saying that's the sole reason you keep him, but that would be the main reason for me of what he does. And
yeah,
you know, like it does feel kind of weird, like being fans and loving this team even when they were bad and finding players that you wanted to watch every night. All these guys were in that grouping. And it just feels kind of weird to go through those lean years and then all of a sudden they move on before you even get a chance to get that experience in the postseason that you wanted. Yeah.
To your point, I would be okay if I thought you had a left fielder. I could live with the idea of Colton Cowser being your everyday center fielder. You're right. He's not Cedric Mullins because, my God, you know, like who has Cedric Mullins' range? It's insane. But I think he's good enough to be an everyday major league center fielder. I really do. I don't think you have a left fielder, and you know you already have limited range in right with Anthony Santander, and I can live with that because you know the arm's outstanding, and my God. You know, I'm at the point where you need to extend Anthony Santander because he's so valuable in the middle of your lineup. But I just can't.
Are you okay trading Kierstead?
For the right piece, yeah. I mean,
that's kind of where I'm at too. And then we were talking about it today, and Rob said if they trade Kierstead, then they're probably more than likely going to have to give an extension to Santander.
Right.
And I don't know what's going to happen today, but the story came out that they didn't want to trade any of the three guys.
It was weird, right? Like So Rock is who you're referring to. Rock and his had everybody but Kjerstad on that list. Like he said that a National League executive said they don't want to talk about Holiday, Basayo, they don't want to talk about Mayo, and they don't want to talk about Cowser. I'm like, well, there is one notable name that isn't on that list that would become a piece. But I don't think you can Kjerstad Stowers your way to getting a Tarek Skubal either, right? Like,
and that's the weird thing. It felt like John Paul Morosi was trying to speak it into existence earlier, where he's like, Kyle Stowers has accomplished everything you can accomplish at AAA. He's dying to get, and I'm going, is this really happening? Are they going to convince somebody that? I mean, Stowers is still a good player, but he's not, in my opinion, and I hope he does well, whatever happens with him here, wherever. But I don't know that he has the same type of ceiling as the other guys. We've been wrong before.
Yeah.
But I really want to see him get traded so he can go play in the majors. He's done everything at AAA.
I am intrigued. Dude, I am still in on, if there is a path to Skubal that doesn't involve, I have said if it didn't involve Holiday or Mayo, I'm 1,000% on board with it, right? I was reluctant to have the conversation. If we got to tomorrow and they said we're trading Holiday for Skubal, I would still probably be inclined to say, I don't love it, but giddy up, let's go, right? Like you got Tarek Skubal, let's roll with that. If you can do it without, my God, that's unbelievable. I just don't think you can. It just feels like that ultimately the price is going to be too high and they're going to say, hey, we couldn't come up with Skubal. But I guess the question would be if it's Kjerstad for Fetty, are you going to lose your mind about that?
Yeah, because Fetty's a guy. Like to me, he's having a good year. He went overseas, developed a new pitch, came back over, and he's looked really good. But to me, he's still like better than average in this league, and I don't want to give up that power hitting, Swedish prince over there to go get Eric Fetty. If Kiersted's involved in a deal for Skubal, like I'm listening to you, and I understand you have to do it. If somehow, some way, Mike Elias acquires Tarek Skubal and doesn't give up any one of the big three, Kamala Harris should just say he's the VP now.
No doubt.
She's running with Elias.
Jesus Christ. That would
walk with us.
Be magical. And then I had said yesterday, and maybe it was I was overly emotional after it's been, look, this week has been ugly, obviously. And the Ramon Arias thing from Saturday is about as rock bottom gets for baseball. But I had this feeling when I came in to do the show over on 105.7 yesterday that, like, I just think I might be out on rentals. That, like, whatever they're doing, I think the last month has made me say, it's not that I don't think they can win this year, but I don't think I can make moves prioritizing specifically this year and not it being about this year and next year. But then in the 24-hour sense, like remembering you cannot continue to think that Craig Kimbrell is your closer. It just can't happen. Mm-hmm. I think that I would still be okay with renting Tanner Scott at a certain price because, like, you just don't there's no way. Like, pack up the season if you're just going to keep pretending like this is going to work with Craig Kimbrell.
Yeah, and so that's the one big thing for me between today and tomorrow is that you got to find somebody, and it's interesting to hear people talk about Cano now. Like they didn't want him at the end of last year to do it, and now Craig Kimbrell's been so suspect that it's like, hey, is that the guy you go to? So I would honestly like to kick the tires on a Tanner Scott. Texas just made a move and traded Michael Lorenzen. Are they going to trade their bullpen pieces? And because they said they're trying to stay in it because they have so much money in their pitching and their hitters.
They're right there.
It's like,
because the AOS stinks.
Yeah, they were, but then they got swept by the Blue Jays.
That's true.
So it is kind of tough. But you mentioned Tanner Scott. I mean, you could sit here and look at some other bullpen arms, but I think you have to get somebody at the back end that you trust to get you 3 outs. And I've been saying it all year. Like God forbid. Like I like Craig Kimbrell, the player. He's a Hall of Famer.
Right.
I don't want him closing games for me.
Yeah.
It's over. I just don't trust him when we get to the postseason.
Yeah, that's over. Like not to say that hey, if you get Tanner Scott and you have to use him on back-to-back nights and you get to a third night, then okay, that night Craig Kimbrell can be your closer, right? But all of this, and you and I have talked about it before. I have questions about Brandon Hyde, and there are things that I can disagree with. Overall, I think Brandon Hyde has done a good job. The people that are obsessed with the idea of they just hate Brandon Hyde because that's the way that it works. When a player does something wrong, it's Brandon Hyde's fault. It's the same thing with hating an offensive coordinator that exists. I'm befuddled by the defensive Craig Kimbrell in that, well, they were using him too frequently and now they're using him too infrequently. That's called being a closer. If you're a closer, you don't know when you're going to pitch. You have to be capable of doing the job.
Yeah, and we've talked about it too, with some of the names that the Orioles have been linked to. Blake Snell is extremely interesting, but you're definitely going to have a a full bullpen or at least some sort of way where it's hey, Blake Snell starts and here comes Dean Kramer to wrap it up for you. If you get a guy like that, because he only goes 5 innings, and depending on what they add and what they decide to, I trust the front office, and I think you feel the same way. But we're going to look at some things and go, I didn't like giving up that much. But so far, I felt comfortable with the moves they made.
Yeah, I'm okay. Again, the Eflin thing, I like all 3 of the pieces that they gave up, but that's a trade you make. You make that it's the same thing as I like Joey Ortiz, but you make that trade for Corbin Burns every I like those
Can I
pieces.
tell you what Rob said earlier today?
What?
He called him Zach Eflin, and it was just a kiss right there.
I believe
that we had Zach Eflin pitching for us.
I believe that
High School Musical?
Yeah, no, hang on. John Proctor messaged me earlier in the show and said, he got shredded. I was talking about Zach Eflin. He's like, he did get shredded for that role in Baywatch. He's probably a good actor.
That was actually a pretty funny movie, surprisingly.
I never spent any time with it, but I did love him in what was the Seth Rogen movie that what was that one called?
Oh, Neighbors.
Neighbors, love that one. That one was a great one. I was all in on that.
He's been in quite a few, but he's got to that point, and I love how we can just veer off on something that has nothing to do with anything.
Right.
But I don't know if he's one of those guys that's put so much work into his body, and I don't know what the dudes in Hollywood are doing, but he bulked up real quick. He's enormous now.
Him and what's his face, Jeremy Allen White for the Iron Claw, right?
Which, by the way, I'm midway through The Bear.
Okay. All right. We'll wait till next week. I'll wait. I want you to get to the end of it for me to talk to you about my issue with it. All right. I don't.
Okay.
I want you to.
And I don't care what anyone says. I'm Team Richie. If he's yelling at anyone, I don't care. That's my guy.
That's kind of part of my problem with this season.
Oh, okay.
They didn't do enough with
the screaming stuff back and forth. It's all right, I got it.
Can I give you broadly, without giving anything away, can I give you broadly my take on the season? And then
it's fine. I'm not worried about it. It's not like this is, to me, you're not spoiling a death or something in a show that I'm watching. It's, unless you're going to do that.
I'm worried that they like the smell of their own farts too much.
I got you.
I'm worried, nothing happens all season. It's just I think what I'm most worried about is that I wanted them to do the show at the Beef Shack, and I don't really like that they're I'm worried that the point of the show is to now celebrate fine dining, and I'm just not that interested in fine dining. I liked the kind of kitschiness of the Beef Shack and the interactions between the characters, and I just think they're obsessed with the fine dining thing, and they've forgotten that they're supposed to be making a show. That's what.
Your point, and when I started watching season 1 and season 2, I couldn't stop watching.
Right.
So this was one where I was watching The Bear this weekend, and I got to a point I was like, yeah, I think
Yeah.
Like the last 2 episodes I watched kind of feel like the same episodes. So I was like, I'll give it a break and then I'll try it again when I'm not so tired.
And I got through it. And I'll watch season 4 when it comes out. But like, I'm very worried that they've lost their way in what made the show work. And everybody, the one that got nominated for all the Emmys this year, the Fishes episode from last season, the Christmas episode,
great.
is one of the greatest things I've ever seen. You don't ever want to watch it again, but it's unbelievably fascinating because of the interaction between the characters, because it was a ensemble performance where you got, and they just don't even do those. There's so few ensemble scenes in this season of The Bear. I just don't know what the show is supposed to be anymore. Like, I'm just very and to your point, Richie is that's the guy. Like, we want more Richie. Cousin. Yeah. We want more Cousin. And there was so little of Richie in this season. Like, all right. Sorry.
Well, and again, I feel like you could take parts of my life with some of the stories you're saying. Like, I've definitely had a dinner like they've had at Thanksgiving. But mine would probably be like Hillbilly Elegy 2 without the couch sex, stuff like that.
I don't think that. Oh, dude, can I say the most embarrassing thing?
What's that?
I have wanted to share this on social media, so everybody knows the couch sex story, while fun, is not true. Like, that's not an actual. It's just a thing that started on the internet that like they're trying to capitalize on, because JD Vance.
Couch, Peter.
Whatever your opinion, I don't care who you're voting for. We all have to be willing to acknowledge JD Vance is kind of a weirdo, right? Like, he's kind of a weirdo. The way I'm worried about this. I'm watching another show, and I should not be watching it because it is not for me.
What is it?
I watched the second season of That 90s Show on Netflix, which of course is I know, Jeremy. I know.
I tried to watch How I Met Your Father, and I'm like, I don't even want to meet him anymore.
But this is the problem. I can't give up. I can't give up on Red and Kitty. I just love Red and Kitty that much that I'm willing to.
They're very likable.
Exactly right. So I'm willing to watch That 90s Show. The first episode of season 2 of That 90s Show, they do a storyline that involves one of the kids, one of Red and Kitty's, not their grandkids, but like the friends, having sex with a couch. I'm pretty sure that this JD Vance thing was ripped off from That 90s Show, but I have been reluctant to say that out loud because it would require me to admit something very embarrassing, that I've watched That 90s Show.
Because that's the embarrassing part, not the couch
sex with the couch. So I was in a situation. I was out. I went to see OAR on Saturday night. My 7-year-old has had a tough week too, right? Like, it's no fun for a 7-year-old. Your brother's in the hospital. My 7-year-old loves Fitz and the Tantrums, and they were opening for OAR. I've gone to see OAR. I'm friends with Jerry from OAR. Like, they've been a part of my life for a long time. So I decided that I would leave the hospital on Saturday. My wife would stay there. I would take the 7-year-old to Merriweather to see OAR and Fitz and the Tantrums. And my friend, Delegate Mike Griffin, very kindly, he had a box and invited us to come up and sit in his box, which is great for a 7-year-old. Like, it was the perfect way for him to go to a concert. So we're up
riding
there.
High. Feeling good.
Delegate Griffith, you would imagine every now and then we end up talking politics, right? And he brings up, like, the JD Vance thing. And I'm like, oh, dude, I got to tell you something, but it's really embarrassing. And, like, him and one of his buddies, like, look at me like I'm about to say, I've had sex with the couch. Like, they just, because of the setup. Because
it wasn't just any couch. It was a recliner.
Right.
We so many different positions. Yeah.
Dude, the memes. He starts sending me all the memes. I'm like, oh, this is wonderful.
God, I had so many. They had the one of the 5 dudes standing behind the couch with the white girl on the couch. And then they just eliminate the girl and put his face on all the guys looking at the couch. And I'm like, oh, my God.
The better one, the pull-out method ones have been really good. Like, those have been a 10.5. I'm big fan. Big fan of the memes.
I do think it's pretty cool that you're friends with one of the guys from OAR. And I'm friends with one of the guys that works at Broken OAR.
Hey,
so
how about
that's
that?
a restaurant over here. Yeah. Nice. We got a lot in common.
Very similar. You act like you don't have any famous friends. You act like you don't have any successful friends. Stop it. All right. What's coming
Deadpool
up?
was awesome. Did you see it?
I haven't been able to see it yet because I've not seen Deadpool. I don't want to talk about it.
If you're Christian, don't go and watch the first 25 minutes and then walk out. So, Jesus. Did you see that video of that woman? It's like, did you not see Deadpool 1 and 2 to understand that this movie's rated R?
But that's the thing. It's like the Last Supper thing that ended up not even being the Last Supper from Friday.
But you can't tell anybody that.
When the people want to be offended, like if they get off on the idea of something being offensive to them,
because like we were talking about it on the morning show today, and Ed went off on it, where I said, well, so what do you guys think? Like, this is about Dionysus, and then you look at the Sistine Chapel, and then the Last Supper. There was a lot of inspiration from that. It's Greek mythology. Where did the Olympics start? It makes sense, but then there are people that go, no, I don't want to hear it. I don't like that, and they just shut down on it. So
it's just it's
like you can't have conversations anymore
because you want to be offended, because you're looking for a chance to be offended about something, because you want to be aggrieved. You want to be. You don't have real problems. You're good. So you're desperate to try to find something that creates a real problem, because then you think you don't have to address the people that do have real problems.
Chris Rock said it best. It's selective outrage. It's whatever you want to be. And look, I'm not telling people what they should and shouldn't be offended by, but like when something's explained to you and you just go, nope, it is the way I says it is, and that's how it's going to be. It's like, what? Okay. All right.
That's the way it goes, man.
We'll just keep it moving then.
What you got? What's going on in your world this week?
Well, it looks like my website's going to finally be done.
Yes,
so OnlyFans, you guys can check it out. No, ConcreteLocks.com. It's actually up now where people can go look at it.
When I get the bill from all the stuff that insurance isn't covering for the 8 days that we were in the hospital, you will be finding me on OnlyFans.
Well, I might be your first subscriber. But no, so the website's almost done. I said this, I think I told you. I'm close to going out to Napa August 9th through 11th, and I'll compete for $500,000 with FanDuel, so I'm excited about that. But, everything else just been like the next, what time is it? The next 28 hours or 30 hours will be just me watching Jeff Passan's Twitter page and just scrolling through it, and John Paul Morosi, like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
That's the life. I've been doing it all morning. By the way, my favorite thing, and I did check out ConcreteLocks.com, and I have to tell you the thing that I like the most about it is lorem ipsum dolor sit amet consectator epidisising elite ut eliteris. That's the one that I feel the strongest.
It's almost done. That's like yeah, there's some other stuff that'll be cleaned up, but I had to set up the Stripe account for payments and everything, and now that's going to be linked, and then they'll clean up the rest of it.
Love you, buddy. At JConsports on Twitter, ConcreteLocks.com. Big Bad Morning Show, 105.7 The Fan. We'll talk next Monday. Thank you, buddy.
See you, man.
Jeremy Conn with us as he is every Monday here on GCR. Appreciate him. Yeah, I don't have the words for the opening ceremony thing. Like, I just don't. You're so desirous of being offended. There are people that have actual problems, and you want to join that group. You want to be in the aggrieved. It just ain't. Stop it. I'm not doing this. And I did just publicly admit to actual human beings that I've watched that 90s show, which I'm now gonna have to I'm gonna need therapy because I just admitted that to people out loud. It came out of my mouth. All right, we are winding down for a Monday edition of the program. Let's get a tidbit.
Have you ever thought of taking a cruise to these wonderful destinations with sunny skies and beautiful beaches? Well, wait no longer. We're ready for you to cruise from the Cruise Maryland Terminal.
Have a little phrase that you can go from baggage to margarita in about 15 minutes.
Choose fun with an array of destinations, onboard activities, entertainment, and world-class cuisine.
Contact your travel agent and book your cruise today. Let your adventure begin.
All right. Grant, what do you have for us for Tidbit of the Day today? Yeah, that's you. Yeah.
I got it pulled up.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Tomorrow we're going to lock that up. We're going to have that ready to go. Maybe pull it up on this computer tomorrow so you can just pivot from one computer to the next in that situation. What you got?
Even amidst a no decision on Friday, Grayson Rodriguez still is tied with two others in the American League for wins. Who are those two others, and can you also guess who's right behind them with 11?
Well, that's interesting because the guys that come to mind Like Scooble's on a bad team, but
Well, you got one right there, yeah.
But so yes, obviously it's Scooble because you just confirmed it was Scooble. But I was gonna like hem it. I was actually thinking about hemming and hawing on that one a little bit just because he's on a bad team.
Right.
Lugo would be the other guy that would come to mind. Lugo.
Yep.
Okay.
So who's the one with 11? This one may surprise you.
Luis Heel.
No, he's got 10. He's tied with 3 others, including Corbin Burns.
Is it one of the Red Sox pitchers?
No. That Red Sox pitcher would have 10 wins.
Is it Houck?
No.
Bayo?
Bayo was the one with 10. I'm telling you, this one may shock you a little bit.
Might shock me, you say. Shock me with your deviant behavior.
Because even I can't believe he's got 11 wins.
Is it Tanner Bybee?
No.
Is it? I don't know who. Because everybody I'm thinking of is in the National League. Who else in the American League? How about like Blanco, Ronel Blanco? Is it a Blue Jay?
No.
Is it a Mariner? Oh, the Mariners are good. The Mariner. Is it a Mariner?
No.
Is it an Astro?
No.
Is it a Guardian?
Nope.
Is it another Royal?
No. Do you want me to help you?
Stop it. Is it a? I got a plan. Is it a Yankee?
Yeah.
Oh, it's another Yankee. Is it? Well, it's not him. He just came back. Oh, is it Rodon?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a weird little bit.
Yeah.
Like he hasn't been great, but the Yankees have won enough games that's not their offense is right. Like that can't be all that surprising. All right, that's is that it?
I think that's all I got.
Right,
yep.
Very good. Let's go ahead and get totally tubular then. Hey man, we're gonna lock it all up. This is practice. This is rehearsal today. Tomorrow we're gonna be locked up and prepared and ready to go, and knowing what's coming. And everything's going to be good. You always get one to get all the jitters out of the way. This one's the one. All the jitters gone. Tomorrow, spectacular performance, right?
There is a place where tradition, family, and community gather, where the aspirations of talented young competitors takes root, and where the crossroads of history, culture, and renewal come together. This spring, experience America's newest and most innovative ballpark, Meritus Park in Hagerstown, Maryland. Home of the Atlantic League Flying Boxcars. Plan your getaway today. You're welcome in Hagerstown, Maryland.
All right, here's what's coming up, totally tubular. Of course, the Orioles have a doubleheader, gets underway this afternoon, and Zach Eflin will make his Orioles debut as he goes against Yariel Rodriguez of the Blue Jays. First pitch, 3:05 for the first game of the doubleheader on Masson. No official time for the second game. It's just sort of like whenever the first game ends, they'll take a break, and then they'll come back out and play Game 2. Bowden Francis, Cade Povich will be the pitching matchup for Game 2. Still to come at the Olympics, USA women's basketball takes on Japan in their opener for the tournament. That's at 3 o'clock today on the USA Network. What does NBC have? NBC has... there's a USA-Australia women's beach volleyball on NBC at 4 o'clock, and they'll have I think the gymnastics team final for the men is going on right now. Peacock for all the tennis, other Olympics on E as well. Other baseball today, Nationals Diamondbacks 9:40 on Masson 2, MLB Network Yankees Phillies at 6:40, MLB TV Cubs Reds at 7:10, ESPN Plus for Rangers Cardinals at 7:45. 30 for 30 tonight on ESPN. It's called American Son. It's about Michael Chang, of course, former French Open champion. Michael Chang's 30 for 30. American Son tonight at 7 on ESPN. And the Sci-Fi Network for WWE Monday Night Raw at 8. I would tell you about the non-sports, but Griffin didn't send them to me. So it also is Olympics week. I'm pretty sure that most of the networks kind of tap out during Olympics week and say, we would be losing anyway. Although the Olympics aren't live at night. I don't get that. Like we already know what happened. Whatever. It is a little bit weird because some of the Twitter accounts, like for NBC and the Olympics and stuff, will be like, will so-and-so do... And we're like, well, we already know. Like, we saw it this afternoon when it happened. What are we doing here? What is this? I'm reminded that when Kimmy Meisner was skating in the Olympics in 2006, I don't remember where they were that year, but they were in Europe, and I was demanded that when I was doing updates on ESPN Radio 1300, I do not give the results of Kimi Meisner in the Olympics. I say I do not do that because everybody was going to watch them at night. It's wild, Jack. Wild, wild time. All right. Thanks today to Jeff Diamond. Thanks to Brian Anderson for telling us about Zach Eflin. Thanks to Jeremy Conn and to Jason Newton from checking in Paris. We'll get them all up in the greatest hits section of the
Oh, my God, it's so good.
Good enough tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. He's actually been doing it differently recently, but it's too much. I'm not going to make you
Was
learn
it
the Jose
song?
Iglesias.
Yeah.
The Oh, my God. It's so good tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. I don't know what we're doing on the program tomorrow. I'll get around to that at some point. Stuff and things is what we're doing on the program tomorrow. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including Easy Pass, Ocean City, Live Casino and Hotel, Visit Hagerstown in Washington County, Cruise Maryland, Guilford Hall Brewery, Royal Farms, the Ed Block Courage Awards, HelpMyGamblingProblem.org, the Costas Inn, MSAA, the Baltimore Orioles, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Grant. Remind everybody, where are you on social media?
Just Instagram, 20G to Vivo.
Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Monday evening. Go Birds and go Birds. Duke sucks.